Welcome back to Second and Short. It is March 31st, 2023, and as we speak, opening day is coming to a close. It has been more than I could wish for. A fantastic opening day. My team wins, Luke's team wins. What more can we ask for?
Exactly.
It,
Loved it.
Tons and tons of stuff to talk about there. Great outcomes, great baseball, just all around. And we've also got, of course, NFL news. It couldn't be a week without the reality TV show that is the NFL. We're going to get you the top 10 inside linebackers list from last season. We're also going to give our MLB division winner predictions. Originally, when I put this on here, I was under the impression that opening day was Friday and not Thursday. I thought we were going to do this before any games have been played. We aren't. But I think both of us made our lists before games were played. So there's no foul play here. Not that one game is going to change your division winner. But
Exactly.
we're also going to talk Premier League this weekend. It's coming back from the international break. We'll hit stake your claim and we'll get the hell out of here. Luke, are you ready to get into the NFL news?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we start off a little bit of soccer and NFL news here. Part of Sheikh Jassim's proposal to buy Manchester United is a guarantee that the Glazers, obviously the ownership family of Manchester United, as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, can bring the Buccaneers to Qatar for an exhibition game in the national stadium in Doha. And supposedly, this definitely appeals to the Glazers. This seems like the stupidest bargaining thing. Like, I want to buy this giant, probably the biggest club in the world, from you, and you get to let your football team play American football in Qatar.
Who would they play against?
Uh, I don't know. Anyone?
Yeah, I that's what I'm trying to figure out. I
Whoever
think,
else wants oil money?
yeah, right. I think if Tom Brady was going to play an exhibition game in Qatar, that would be a good business move. But with the team that the Buccaneers have now, I don't think you don't need to play in the Middle East, man. Is there really even a market out there?
No, there's not. And
I'll
the
say.
better part is the fact that Baker Mayfield is most definitely going to break a lot of rules in Qatar.
I'm telling you, man, I would pay if I were the Buccaneers, I'd pay big money for a handler for him, someone to watch him
Yeah,
24
put
7.
him on like one of those like backpack leashes that you see at the zoo with like for little kids.
Walk around with Baker Mayfield. That'd be
Yeah,
hilarious.
they have like the strength and conditioning coach walking Baker Mayfield around, making
Would,
sure he
would you
doesn't
do that?
grab his balls on the sideline.
Would you be Baker Mayfield's handler? What's your price, Grayson?
Nah, I'd love to just third person observe Baker Mayfield out in the wild in a foreign country.
Fucking study him and shit. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
I just look. I'm totally fine with the Glazers selling Manchester United. We can talk about this when we're talking about soccer, but in general, I'm fine with it. I don't think it changes much. We talked about the idea of them being bought by Sheikh Jassim a couple of weeks ago, and I think we both kind of agreed like Manchester United has built up this brand primarily from tradition and history, and now you bring in what so many clubs that have come out of nowhere, really. Like Manchester City was not a fantastic club until they got a bunch of money. Same with PSG. Like they don't have the storied histories of Manchester United. Imagine mixing this historic club and just honestly a traditional mainstay in soccer with billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, which I think Manchester United already have a pretty hefty transfer budget. Of course, I don't think it really compares to the likes of PSG or City, but definitely a team with a lot of money there. I am so happy for United fans that the Glazers are out because I think that the Glazers have been the one thing holding United back post Sir Alex, I think. And we're going to see a good change here. I think the Glazers, like I said earlier, they definitely were the one thing holding this team back, and now we get to see them kind of off the leash. And like you said, with a huge transfer budget, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for sure.
All right, let's talk about the Pat McAfee show. Tom Curran went on the Pat McAfee show and just gave us some of the craziest news I've ever heard. He said there's a conversation happening in New England about Bill Belichick. Robert Kraft expects success, and it might not be Bill's decision when he goes. That is just a giant bombshell.
Yeah. Um, Bill, in my opinion, no matter what, kind of like Mike Tomlin, your Andy Reeds, those guys, they're guys that just shouldn't get fired.
Yeah, I think that no matter how the team is playing, it's probably not Bill Belichick's fault.
Exactly. This is really strange news, actually. I honestly, I can't believe I can't imagine the Patriots without Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I can't either. There's no coach in the NFL that could just replace Bill Belichick.
Absolutely not. And this Patriot history is Bill Belichick's history. I that is such a strange conversation to have. I Look, if it was me, no way I'm moving away from Bill Belichick. And especially, you can look at, post Tom Brady Patriots, they haven't been as good, but there's a pretty damn good reason that they can still draw in players in the free agency and that they've been consistent and been at least a 500 team. And that's because of him. Bill Belichick and I feel like Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin are kind of similar right now, where they're both guys that yeah, their success was a lot in their starting quarterback, but look, they have kept their team so competitive since then, and I feel like that's even more of a testament to how good Bill Belichick can be. No way I'm looking beyond him.
Yeah, I feel like it would be ridiculous. Like the day that I see that Bill Belichick was fired by the New England Patriots is the day that I give up on that franchise as a whole.
Yeah, he would have to commit a crime for me to even consider it.
It'd have to be a real serious one for me to consider it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if it's like something just just a dumb choice, he'd have to kill somebody for me to fire
Yeah,
him.
but
Basically,
not like an accident, not like vehicular manslaughter, like the guy jumped out in front of him. He'd have to personally kill the person like with his bare hands for
yeah,
me to be
he'd
like,
have
yeah,
to
you
lose.
should probably fire Bill Belichick.
Yeah. I mean, vehicular manslaughter, Bill, we can talk about it. This isn't good, but
Yeah.
we can talk
Hey,
about
Jim
it.
Boeheim kept his job at Syracuse after he did it.
Yeah. Mr. Mosley on Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, he also killed somebody, vehicular
Oh
manslaughter.
yeah, yeah, Mr. Mosby before
Yeah.
his
Or
acting
Mr. Mosby,
career.
sorry. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, this is a stupid conversation to have. I wonder why. That's one thing that we haven't talked about yet. Is I mean, maybe this team, needs a freshen up. I mean, he's been there for a long time, but they're a decent team because of him, and they've lost all this talent. I wonder what the why is here.
I honestly think that the why here is that this probably isn't the case, but what's the fun in the New England Patriots if we're not talking about them?
Yeah, they're not they're not a big market. They're not necessarily the most flashy team, so I definitely can understand that for sure.
All right, let's talk about the NFL's rules. They approved some rules and bylaws, definitely turned down a lot of them, but a couple of them pretty big. So my favorite, um, this one was proposed by the Eagles. Players are now permitted to use the number zero, single zero, on their jersey, and it allows kickers and punters to use any jersey number between 0 and 49 and 90 and 99. So let me tell you, if there's a kicker with the number 99, I respect the hell out of you.
Yeah, big time.
But as a result of that rule change, Calvin Ridley announced he's going to be wearing number 0, which baller. I think the number 0 is the best jersey number.
Really?
Yes, I there's something almost intimidating about the number 0 on a football field.
I like I like when wide receivers wear single digit. Like I think Julio Jones wearing 6. I've always thought that was kind of nice. I also like the number 3 on like defensive backs and stuff. Number 1 with Sauce
Yeah.
Gardner is kind of cool too. There's a couple, but 0. You know what? I like it. Calvin Ridley, he's already coming back. He'll wear a number that has never been worn before. Yeah, I mean, he's poised, man. People are going to be watching.
Yeah. A couple of other rule changes as well. The Chargers proposed one that was approved, which was to make the adjustment of the play clock following an instant replay reversal consistent with other timing rules. That one's not a huge deal. Houston got one approved to expand the replay official's jurisdiction to allow for review on a failed fourth down attempt. And then it appears that a majority of the rest are by the competition committee. So they want to change the definition of a launch to leaving one or both feet, to make a penalty for tripping a personal foul, to make a penalty for illegally handling the ball, handing the ball forward, consistent with other illegal acts such as illegal forward pass, to make the penalty for illegal punts, drop kicks, and place kicks consistent with other whatever. That one's not a big deal. Um, to prevent the offense from benefiting by an extension of the half as a result of their foul. And
Wow.
then let's see. To change the claiming period to Monday for players who are waived on the Friday and Saturday of the last week of the regular season, and to insert strength of victory as the second tiebreaker for awarding contracts. So that doesn't make much sense to me. I don't understand strength of victory. I feel like I probably need a little more explanation on that.
I was wondering the same thing. What does strength of victory mean exactly?
I don't know. That's the problem here.
Do the do the owners know?
Probably not. They're gonna put out some like bullshit algorithm, but yeah, I don't know what that means really whatsoever.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, the Chargers had a approved resolution, which was to provide greater clarity as to a player's availability for a game. So that
Thank
one
you.
definitely is interesting because the way that the NFL works, there is a certain time on Thursdays when your game's on a Sunday. I believe it's Thursday when you have to list your actives and inactives. Guys can still be questionable, doubtful, whatever. They still are considered active players. And so I think what the Chargers are doing here is kind of making it a harder decision on whether a guy is active or inactive,
Okay.
which,
I mean,
eh,
I like it.
yeah, like it does a lot, especially for fantasy football. I know that's not really how we should be thinking about these rules, but I think for fantasy football, it's a big deal because I personally had to deal with a couple of different people. Um, like it was like, okay, they're questionable, and then game time decision, they pull them.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
yeah, that sucks, and it's gonna happen. But I think that with this rule change, I think maybe that comes, at least gets diminished.
I agree. Yeah, honestly, Grayson, my first thought went into fantasy football when I read this. So
Yeah,
I it's fucked me over a lot too. Like you'll have a guy that's questionable for like let's say like a 4 o'clock game, but your other guy that you're thinking about plays at 1, and you decide to not play the guy at 1 and wait on the guy at 4 o'clock, and then he's done like by midday, like ruled out. So
yeah.
I'm definitely excited for this one for my own personal usage against my friends in fantasy football.
All right, and then T. Higgins decided to switch his number to number 5. He gave a reasoning. I believe it was on Twitter, possibly in just a normal statement, that he was tired of being compared to Chad Johnson. People were calling him Ocho Cinco 2.0. T. Higgins said, "No respect or no disrespect to Chad, but I want to be I want to be T. Higgins 1.0. I don't want to be 2.0 to anybody."
I like it. Good mentality
Yeah,
to have
and
there.
single digit wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm telling you, those guys just end up getting nastier. I feel like with their single digit number, but I like this for T Higgins. It's a good statement, and I feel like he's one of those guys that, in my opinion, is still poised to break out. I don't think we've seen sorry, the best of T Higgins yet, but I'll definitely be looking forward to it this season, just not against the Steelers, hopefully.
All right, and Matt LaFleur was talking about the transition to Jordan Love, and that it will be a progression. He said in quotes, "I think we're fooling ourselves if we think he's going to go out there and perform at a level to the likes of an Aaron Rodgers," which I feel like this is already kind of the thought here. But if you at any point were expecting Jordan Love to come out and play like Aaron Rodgers, you must have been going on some darkness retreats with him.
Um, that's funny, Grayson. I, Matt Lafleur here, he's just kind of stating the obvious. Personally, it's a fair statement to make, but if you're rocking with Jordan Love, I don't know if I'd really be coming out and saying this publicly. You know what I mean? I feel like you're kind of diminishing Jordan Love a little bit because Jordan Love already knows he's not going to be better or as good as Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Matt LaFleur just felt like he had to say it to kind of like, maybe he's worried about how the fans are going to take this transition because the Packers will obviously not be as good as they were last year, next year. But I don't know. I don't really like Matt LaFleur saying this about his own player.
Yeah, I think we're realizing quickly that the Packers franchise as a whole are way too open with what they have to say.
Yeah, because we had some Aaron Rodgers stuff recently that was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, a lot of times where it's like, you don't have to tell the media this.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's talk about the Commanders because we're getting some interesting developments here. So there's now two fully funded bids that have been placed on the Commanders franchise. One being billionaire and owner of the 76ers and New Jersey Devils of the NHL, Josh Harris, along with his group, including Magic Johnson, as
Hell
well
yeah.
as the guy we talked about either last week or the week before, Canadian billionaire Steve Apostolopoulos. I heard them say it on ESPN, so I'm confident in it now.
Yeah, those Greek names, man, they always look crazy, but they're usually pretty easy to pronounce, I feel like.
Yeah, it's not too bad. But according to Adam Schefter, we could see the Commanders sold before the NFL draft. And that is huge because right now, Dan Snyder is a little busy to be actually running this franchise as the owner. Like, he doesn't have time to hop on a call with the GM or whatever. He's too busy telling ESPN he doesn't want to talk to them and telling the NFL that he doesn't want to be talked to in this investigation.
Yeah, I'm sure he's been on the phone with a lot of lawyers, telling them to cover up all this bullshit. But
Yeah.
it's just great to see that, we're getting the ball moving on getting this organization out of, his shitty little grubby hands. And this is amazing. Before the draft, it is incredible to hear because I honestly thought that that Dan Schneider would try to draw out this situation for as long as possible. I literally was thinking like years before this franchise was sold.
Yeah, and it's already been dragged out so long. Like just a couple of years, like in the last couple of years, it's been kind of the idea that like people want Dan Snyder out. He especially to Redskins football team Commanders fans since kind of the a couple of years after he bought the team, it's just been downhill, and those fans have wanted him out for a long time. Like in his first year, he brought on a bunch of veteran guys, paid him a ton of money, including Deion Sanders at like the very end of his career,
Oh
and
wow.
then they played like shit. And they really have not gotten back to the level that they were playing at prior to Dan Snyder buying this team. Obviously, in '83, winning a Super Bowl, and after that, being a pretty solid team, they totally just kind of tripped and fell with Dan Snyder bought the team.
Yeah, that's a good point because and even during our lifetimes with Dan Schneider owning the Commanders, we've seen some awesome teams like with, RG3 and just eras like that where the Commanders were, looking like a playoff team and in some cases were actually in the playoffs, but they've just always kind of missed it. And in my opinion, they've had good head coaches. I want to say they had Mike Shanahan
Yeah.
for a
And
while,
that
who I
staff,
liked him.
the staff under Mike Shanahan was littered with NFL coaches right now. Guys like
Exactly.
McVay, obviously Kyle Shanahan, um, Mike McDaniel. I'm blanking on a couple of other guys, but yeah, huge names in the NFL right now played or coached for that Redskins team with Mike Shanahan, and they just could not get it done. And it's partially due to Dan Snyder's ownership. And then in the last couple of years, it seems like we're more focused and the media is more focused on what's happening behind the scenes than what's actually happening on the football field with the Commanders.
Which is a shame because I mean that D line, I would put that D line up against the 49ers. Honestly, that Commanders off or defensive line, think of what it would look like with a better team, behind them. I mean, it and even to kind of go off the coaches again, they have Ron Rivera now. He's been to a Super Bowl before with Cam Newton. It's not like they don't have the pieces or the weapons. I think organizations they're top down. They everything has to be kind of working for a team to play well. But you're completely right. The media has completely lost focus of all the talent on the field because of just this egregious ownership that has plagued this organization for I mean, however long he's owned it. I don't even know whenever he bought it.
Yeah, I think it was late 90s, early 2000s.
So pretty much our entire lives, 20
Yes.
years at least.
Let's keep it with the Commanders though, because Ron Rivera uh, was talking about the QB job. Obviously, they picked up Jacoby Brissett, and Sam Howell is still there. Ron Rivera said that it's open right now. We will play the guy that gives us the best chance to win football games. He also followed this up saying that we'd like to think Sam Howell has the same type of ability and skill set as Brock Purdy. So first, I want to get your take on this QB battle. Who do you think deserves to be the starter week one?
100% Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, just to kind of quickly give my 2 cents, has been, in my opinion, completely disrespected by every franchise he's played for. Jacoby Brissett is a QB1 with a good offense around him, in my opinion. Totally. This dude can play. Sam
Yeah,
Howell, though, is not something that I want them to completely disregard, though. So Jacoby Brissett week one, but constantly be looking for opportunities for Sam Howell.
yeah, I really like that take. Sam Howell is still very young. He was only drafted, I think he was a rookie last year. So, like, he hasn't been in it that long. It's not like he's been around a couple of years. He's been waiting to get this starting opportunity. It's a matter of he's there and he's actually competing for the starting job. But Jacoby Brissett has experience, and I agree with you. I think he is a very good quarterback when he's got pieces around him. I want to get your take though on Ron Rivera saying that we'd like to think that Sam Howell has the same ability and skill set as Brock Purdy, because I think it's kind of crazy to think that two guys who were actually drafted in the same draft are being compared to each other. And Brock Purdy's only played 6 regular season games.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you kind of a similar question. Like, what is it? What is a Brock Purdy skill set exactly?
I think it's just
I
a
mean, like,
consistent passer.
yeah, like kind of your consistent sort of more instead of like the star of the offense, kind of like a piece of the offense. I I don't know if that kind of ability would really work for the Commanders right now. I think you would kind of have to build up a little bit more of like your tight ends and your offensive line to kind of be able to survive as a Brock Purdy, style quarterback offense.
Yeah, I'm
Kind
kind
of,
of in the same boat.
yeah.
Let's talk about the Chargers, though, because it appears that the Chargers have opened up contract negotiations with Justin Herbert. Brandon Staley did not provide a timeline to get a deal done, but did say that the major takeaway is that Justin Herbert is going to be our quarterback.
Well,
So, does
there you
this
go.
mean this deal gets done this summer? I don't. I'm not fully confident in that. I don't think there's too much urgency. Um, it could be a matter of Herbert wants a lot of money, and I think Herbert certainly deserves it. But we've already seen that the Chargers can't value their players correctly. So there's no telling what they're offering Justin Herbert at the moment. So there could be a big jump in money, and maybe they want to see more. Not that I think there's more to prove for Justin Herbert, maybe a playoff win. But at that point, if you push him all the way to the playoffs to wait on this extension, my ass is leaving.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know because if they let him go this entire season, we could kind of see like an Aaron Judge situation where, of course, we don't know what the Chargers and Herbert, we don't know monetarily where they're at right now or how far apart they might be. But Aaron Judge for the Yankees, they couldn't get him in the offseason. Aaron Judge played the last season, hit 63 home runs, and ended up making $140 million more than what the Yankees originally offered him. So if I'm the Chargers, lock him up quick. He's going to be your franchise quarterback. Might as well go ahead and lock him up quicker than or sooner rather than later. But if I'm Justin Herbert, maybe to kind of gain a little bit of leverage, you want to kind of push him back to maybe come playoff time next year. I don't know. That's kind of what I think about that though.
Yeah, I think when it comes to a quarterback, it's a trust thing. If they don't trust you enough, especially from what Justin Herbert has already showed them, then why would I want to stay there? Especially if he gets a really good offer to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean that is true.
So I feel like the Chargers need to get this done before the season starts.
I like it. I mean, if they don't, do you think? I mean, are we looking at a possibility of Herbert not being a Charger, not next season, but the season after?
I certainly think it's a possibility. We're already
I like
seeing
it.
Austin Eckler wants to get out. Now the Chargers are trying to say like, oh, well, there is a way that we could, figure this out with Eckler. But if you figure it out with Eckler, how much money are you really going to have to give Justin Herbert in this offseason? Because
Exactly.
they've only got, I believe, $16 million in cap. Obviously, the extension would start after this season. But if you give Eckler more than 1 year, his money's on the books and you're going to get screwed over.
Yeah, the Chargers, they've really kind of like they put themselves in a bad spot. They really should have tried harder to win it all last year.
Yeah, it's all their fault. It's not that the Jags played really well.
No, I don't want to take away anything from the Jags. They played awesome, but man, the Chargers have really kind of. I'm worried that the Chargers may have completely fumbled this entire like super team that they have. Honestly,
Yeah, dude, they've got something going here, and it's a franchise that's used to this. Let's be honest. It's a franchise that is 1-1 with failure.
yeah. And I know I've talked about it on the pod before, but there was one season where the Chargers had the number one ranked offense and number one ranked defense didn't make the playoffs. This is with Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers has had offenses like Antonio Gates. He even played with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler, Melvin Gordon, and that team also had nothing to show for it. Not even really that many playoff appearances. And when they're in the playoffs, they're not really winning or doing well. So you're exactly right. Is this Chargers team is used to having a loaded team as far as the names and the players, but they just can't they can't take that next step, and they're probably about to lose it all and have to do a complete rebuild.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let's talk about everybody's favorite guy, Odell Beckham Jr. He met with the Ravens, a couple of other teams as well. Said that the love there, or there was love there. Good meeting, lots of people, teams I bumped into. Eventually, Odell is going to be a big addition to a team. I think that that's what we can conclude from kind of what we see. We saw the private workouts. He looks good. What everybody's saying is fantastic. He's in great shape. I just think that the whole holdup is him as a person.
Okay, can you elaborate?
Just kind of what he brings to a team off the field is what is holding off so many teams. Like the fact that he's not already signed, because there's been a ton of wide receivers picked up, and Odell still sits here without a team, and it doesn't look like we really have a lead on anybody.
Yeah, I I mean, you hope that he's matured, and I mean, it kind of sounded like he did. This was a while ago, but and I know I've said it on the pod before, but he, said that his next team he just wants to settle down and like finish out his career there. That sounds pretty good. But then months later, you have him on an airplane, like in and out of consciousness, slurring his words, and like I think having to be kicked off or like threatened to be kicked off. So there's just so much uncertainty, and it's also how much he values himself compared to how much he probably should be valued at, with injuries and performance. There's a lot of things that I think don't really click with GMs as far as talking to Odell. There's going to be a lot of things that they don't agree on, but I mean, this is good news for him. It sounds like things are going well for him with other teams and stuff. But I think you're exactly right. Is him as a person is what's held him back for so long.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of Falcons things. I'm very happy to see a couple of these. So the Falcons first, they signed wide receiver Scotty Miller. Fantastic pickup, solid slot receiver. Honestly, going to be a solid piece of this offense with Drake London, Olamide Zaccheaus, and of course Kyle Pitts. I think Scotty Miller really fits in here. Receptions first kind of guy. Can definitely make it downfield. Solid, speedy. It's a solid pickup there at wide receiver, and you save a lot of money.
Yeah, he's kind of like your kind of Cole Beasleys of the NFL, sort of your short route possession kind of guys, and the fact that they're both white. I mean, I thought I'd say that too. But
Yeah.
Scotty Miller, I think he adds a different type of wide receiver to this Falcons team, and it's a type of wide receiver that I don't think we've seen in Atlanta for a while. But I think, yeah, you're right. He'll complement the other receivers around him very nice. And I'm excited to see him get a lot more opportunity with the Falcons than he did with the Buccaneers. Because I mean, the Buccaneers were loaded at wide receiver, but Scotty Miller is a good talent, and I think we're going to see a lot of them in Atlanta. And I'm excited to see how he'll do.
Yeah. And then the Falcons signed Calais Campbell, which I think is an absolutely fantastic move. It's going to add to the depth on this defensive line from what we've picked up in the offseason. We've already got Grady Jarrett. We pick up David Onyemata. Now we pick up Calais Campbell. The defensive line is quickly forming into uh, like 10 times better than what it was last year. A team that couldn't get a sack to save their lives. And now it looks like we're going to draft somebody probably on the edge at the with the eighth pick. Like it looks very good from here right now as a Falcons fan.
There's just so many things we can talk about with this signing because Calais Campbell is a veteran that can still ball very hard. Like you said, they have the guy from the Saints. How did you pronounce his name?
David Onyemata.
Onyemata. He's going to come in there. They still have Grady Jarrett, and whoever they get at edge, depending on how they play. I think the big takeaway here is we'll finally get to see what Grady Jarrett looks like when all the attention is off of him. And I'm kind of excited because, we've always talked about Grady Jarrett's a wonderful talent in the NFL, but he's a guy that kind of never really has any stats to back it up. So I'm just, I'm excited to see how he'll break out or if he'll break out.
Yeah. And then Falcons owner Arthur Blank told a group of reporters that the Lamar Jackson situation is very different than Deshaun Watson from a year ago. Blank did mention that there's some concerns with Lamar's style and how long it could hold up, and brought up that he's missed games over the last 2 years. This is
Mm.
interesting coming from an owner. Typically, this is something when we talk about on-field matters. This isn't typically who I'd go to.
Yeah, you either go to your coach or a coordinator, or you go to Jerry Jones because he likes to
Well,
talk about and
he
control
is.
what's on the field.
I believe he's technically the GM of the Cowboys.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Okay, that actually would make a lot of sense because I always wondered, like, what the fuck he was doing in like their draft room, like every year.
No, I believe he is. I can fact
Okay.
check myself, but feel free to talk about this situation here while I look this up.
Oh, for sure. It's a little bit different because living in Georgia, I don't think you really hear a lot about Arthur Blank talking about, like you said, actual play on the field, which is kind of unique. Which I think it needs to be a unique situation because Lamar Jackson is an absolute freak of nature, complete unique talent. But Blank is obviously he's bringing up valid points that we all know. He's missed some games over the last 2 years, especially come playoff time, which is never good. But I, I don't know. I think if you're the Falcons right now, Lamar still would be an awesome pickup to have.
Yeah, I certainly think he's an option. And the thing is if he does come here, he's not going to be relied on in the run game like he was with the Ravens. We already have a run game and we have receivers. We have a fantastic tight end that certainly fills the role of what he had with Mark Andrews as long as Kyle Pitts is healthy. And I really do think this is certainly a better place for Lamar than Baltimore in my mind. Maybe I'm biased, but I think the offense is set up a little bit more in his favor.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely has them beating receivers there. I think you're selling the Ravens running backs a little bit short. I like the kind of combination of Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, and I think they also have the dude who used to play for Carolina, Mike Davis, right? And he a
Well,
Raven?
J.K. Dobbins is he? Yeah,
And
he's still
J.K.
there.
Dobbins. Totally forgot about him. I personally, I would say that the Ravens running backs are better than the Falcons running backs, but if Lamar can kind of, focus a little bit more on his passing game, which if he went to Atlanta, we'd probably see more of because they have more targets. I think, like you said, he would probably flourish in an Atlanta style where he wouldn't have to run the ball as much. But with how effective Lamar can be in the run, you cannot completely take that away from him.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're gonna make him into like Andrew Luck, but I feel like he certainly has the ability to he can still make the runs that kind of come from nowhere, and he'll certainly still have design runs, probably a lot more option plays with Algier and Patterson in the backfield because they're especially Patterson is a lot more about he's strong at the line, but he has breakaway speed, and I think that works very well with an option. So, and of course, Lamar has the speed. So that would be something interesting that we could, implement in this playbook. You obviously have the option for like an RPO style offense where maybe Lamar keeps it and or, hit Drake London on a cut. Like there's so many possibilities here with this offense because it adds receivers to Lamar Jackson's game.
I like that take, and I think the Falcons should definitely be pushing for him, especially with how they handled Deshaun Watson last year. But according to Arthur Blank, it's very different. I personally don't see how it's very different, but that's Arthur Blank. I'm not Arthur Blank. Excuse me, I'm not Arthur Blank,
It's
but
true.
definitely if I'm the Falcons owner, GM or whatever, Lamar is someone that I would definitely at least want to be the front runner for.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Asante Samuel Sr. took to Twitter, obviously former NFL player, two-time Super Bowl winner, I believe, and father of Asante Samuel Jr. on the Chargers. He took to Twitter and said, Lamar Jackson, my brother, trust me, you don't want to play for Belichick. I don't think I've ever heard a player like come out and just be like against playing for Bill Belichick. Like, Asante Samuel Jr. or Senior spent multiple years in New England, went to Super Bowls, won Super Bowls there, and is like, you don't want to play for Bill Belichick.
Do you think it's more of like he's looking out for Lamar, not really shitting on Belichick, or you think he's like absolutely you just don't want to play for Belichick at all?
I think this is like a maybe like a backhanded way of taking a shot at Lamar's character.
Okay, I didn't even think of it that way.
Because look, Bill Belichick playing for him is not for everyone. He's a cutthroat kind of guy. Everything with him is cut and dry. There's no emotions involved. He wants to coach a football team. He wants you to play football. If you're doing anything other than playing football, he's gonna have a problem.
Yeah, the word should have gotten to Juju, I think,
Yeah,
but uh, I think Lamar could play under Belichick.
I think Lamar can play for anybody.
Yeah, But I think he can play for Belichick personally. But hey, I'm not Asante Samuel Jr. or Senior, kind of like I'm not Arthur Blank. But
Yeah.
interesting comment here.
I'm glad that you keep reminding yourself that you're not other people and you are you.
Normal Luke.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the 49ers. Some interesting stuff coming out. So, Shanahan was asked about trading Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. He said, "We'll listen to anything. We'll listen if someone wants to trade for John Lynch. We'll listen if somebody wants to trade for me. I'm sure John Lynch will listen. We'll listen on anything." This is okay. This is Kyle Shanahan being like a little dickhead.
You think so?
Yeah, like of course he's not gonna fucking answer that question correct. Like he's not gonna be like, yeah, we're totally gonna trade Trey when the season starts. Like that he's not gonna say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like it's not like we're gonna do it. Oh, we're gonna keep an open mind, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's just kind of deflecting the question by being funny, which I appreciate. I think Kyle Shanahan plays an interesting role in the NFL when it comes to personalities of head coaches because like young guy kind of just grew up as a coach with his dad being a fantastic NFL coach. And he just actually has a personality. And I think it plays extremely well with the teams he coaches and just kind of the way that we see him in the light of the media.
Yeah, and God forbid you don't want to play nickel anymore
Yeah.
because you'll end up on a different team and being told you want to ride the bench.
Yeah. But another interesting thing here about Brock Purdy, obviously the 49ers, I'd say he's their starting quarterback if he's healthy. He doesn't count against their salary cap. Brock Purdy's salary cap hit of 889,000 is the 52nd highest on the team, and by NFL rules, only the top 51 cap hits actually count against the cap in the offseason.
Interesting. And it's things like this that allows you to bring in Javon Hargrave to a defense that's already fucking like Super Bowl caliber.
Yeah, like you never would have heard about this
Never.
ever. Nobody's starting quarterback is getting paid so little that they don't even hit the cap.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what you get with the Mr. Irrelevant picks, but the 49ers really, I mean, they need to take advantage of this, which I mean, they already kind of have with picking up Javon Hargrave, but this is pretty good. Just don't end up like the Chargers and, forget to pay him.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. But I also think that this plays into his trade value because if you trade him off as the 49ers, unless you're getting picks, you're essentially taking on more money, no matter what.
That's a good
Obviously,
point.
you could get pretty good value out of Brock Purdy, especially if he plays a little bit more. But when it comes to, the cap and just, monetary parts of this whole franchise, trading Purdy doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Um, it's kind of one of those things where if you were to trade Brock Purdy, you could probably get a player that is making I would say $20 million a year for a player like Brock Purdy. And a lot of teams I think, would give up um a player of that caliber for Brock Purdy, a quarterback to start your team off. But the 49ers probably wouldn't do that. I don't think they would give Brock Purdy up for somebody that player wise worth it, but also monetarily absolutely not. Kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. I didn't think we'd have to keep talking about fields and turf and all of this, but a new surface has been installed at MetLife Stadium. Obviously, the Giants and Jets' home is now going to be played on Field Turf Core System, which is the first multi-layered dual polymer monofilament fiber. The heavyweight infill design is supposed to deliver a, in quotes, lower incidence of total injuries.
Okay.
What the fuck does any of that mean? Like, what does that do for me as somebody that takes in NFL news and talks about it? I'm not looking this shit up. I don't give a fuck what they're playing on. If it's turf, it's bad. If it's grass, it's good. That's where I sit.
I completely agree with you actually on that. I don't know. I think it's just a lot of bullshit and big words, but your players' knees rely on this kind of turf, man.
Yeah. And so, if it really does lower the injuries, maybe we see this field turf core system put in every turf stadium. But is this lower incidence of total injuries compared to other turf, or is this compared to all um all playing surfaces? Because obviously, if people aren't getting injured compared to how they get injured on grass, maybe it is something to look into. But if they're saying it's a lower incidence of total injuries, and that's compared to whatever the fuck they had in the ground there before, which was horrible, then duh.
Yeah. Man, all this grass talk, man. Maybe we need a different profession. Maybe we should go cut grass or something.
Fuck it.
I feel like I'm a professional.
I'm dropping out of school to become a landscaper.
Oh man, that I mean, shit. The Chiefs landscaper, he makes a fuck ton of money.
I'm
The
sure.
one that the one that they just fired, he made like a ridiculous salary, and he's just like a field expert. Weird, very
Hey,
weird.
this is grass. And then one more thing. Giants co-owner John Mara was asked about Coach Brian Dable. And before I even say this, why the fuck are you saying shit like this? So he said right now he's Bono walking around New York City. But it doesn't take long to go from Bono to Bozo.
Wow.
First of all, kind of an insult to your head coach. And I guess this is like, oh, I'm gonna like this will light a fire under his ass. Brian Dable lives with a fire lit under his ass.
He's on fire. His ass is on fire right now.
And I'm sure he has heartburn too. He doesn't need anything else burning around him. But also, why Bono? Okay, look, I'm 20 years old. I don't intake a lot of older music. I have seen pictures of Bono. If I saw him walking around, I'd be like, that's a cool looking old dude.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that's Bono.
Oh man. You. This is just such a. This is an insult to a guy who deserves the complete opposite. I mean, that's a. I think Dable is the catalyst of a complete culture change in New York, and you can't be saying shit like this, man. You really can't.
Yeah,
Have some faith.
I feel like John Mara had somebody else write this for him.
Why is that?
Because he obviously used Bono because of the bozo comment. Like, that's
Yeah.
the only reason he's using those words. Somebody certainly wrote, they were like, if you get asked about Coach Dable, you have to say this. So
Bono to
ridiculous.
Bozo. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Dable is a coach that he needs to be respected a lot more, and hopefully he's around for a while.
Yeah, certainly. All right, Luke, before we get into some draft talk, I want to ask you a question real quick. And
Let's
this
hear it.
kind of just has to sum up all of this free agency stuff we've seen. Which teams got worse since the season ended?
That's a good question.
I've got two
The
in
the
mind.
first, the first two that come to mind, and this is I haven't even read this NFL news. This is just first reaction: Eagles Bengals.
Okay.
Bengals obviously they did get that offensive lineman, but I from to my knowledge they have yet to address Jesse Bates or Von Bell, and in a passing league you're going to be fucked.
Yeah, so I'm in the
Uh,
same boat with the Bengals, but
okay.
the other team that I think significantly got worse is the Saints. They, picked up a
Mm.
couple guys here and there, but they have not addressed how many guys they let leave.
Yeah, and it feels like all to Atlanta.
Yeah, and
Didn't they have two
Carolina.
guys leave to Atlanta?
Yeah, they had two guys go to Atlanta. I think two or three guys went to the Carolina. So in the division too.
Yeah, they're gonna have to see those guys twice a year. But the Saints is a very good one. They obviously they got Derek Carr quarterback, which is phenomenal. But yeah, their defense just kind of got picked apart in free agency.
Yeah, it's. I think I kind of agree with you on the Eagles thing, but for them in the place that they were at, it was going to be very hard for them to get much worse, and they actually avoided it pretty well. They kept Slay, they kept Bradbury, they kept a couple of other guys, and I think it kind of keeps the core there. They don't need Miles Sanders, and they don't need Javon Hargrave per se. They have guys that fill these roles, and I wouldn't say they got worse, but they certainly did a good job of avoiding that.
I would say, yeah, in my opinion, they did get worse, but they did a really good job of lessening the effect. But I'm also thinking that they lost their offensive and defensive coordinator as well.
Yeah, that is certainly where they got worse. Obviously, there's no telling how well the guys that fill in are gonna be, but yeah, that is a big part that I think a lot of people overlook, and I certainly did, is the fact that even if you're a very successful team, you can certainly get worse and not lose any players. If you're losing your coordinators and your assistant coaches, it's gonna be a problem.
Especially, I feel like coming off of a Super Bowl, it would have been nice to keep those guys in there. You know, the guys that are fresh off of a Super Bowl are coming back to their same team, but it's kind of like an entire reset. So we'll have to see with the Eagles. Obviously, they're still going to be good, but in my opinion, they're a team that was heavily affected in a negative way by this offseason so far.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into a little bit of draft talk, and then we'll get into our top inside linebackers of last season. Panthers coach Frank Reich told Stephen Holder, "Who should we pick?" Um, Stephen Holder told him, "I think you're taking the guy who looks like the prototype quarterback," which obviously inferring C.J. Stroud. Stephen Holder went on to say that Frank Reich did not try to talk him out of it. I think at this point it's very obvious where the Panthers are going with this first pick. Um, CJ Stroud is the prototype quarterback in this draft, especially when it comes to what we've already seen from his sample size and what we've seen in the combine and his pro days. Like, it appears that he's also doing really well in these meetings. So CJ Stroud is the guy, and he's almost certainly going number one.
He definitely needs to be the guy that goes number one. And if you need an example, look at the Georgia game on New Year's Eve. No quarterback was able to do anything like that against the Georgia defense. NFL defenses, and we're talking about like bottom of the league NFL defenses, are going to be the Georgia defense on steroids. CJ Stroud is 100% the best quarterback in this draft class. And if the Panthers take anybody other than him, you can go ahead and just kiss your Bears trade just chalk it up as a complete wash if they don't take CJ Stroud, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He is like by far the obvious choice, and I am honestly super passionate about it. If they take Anthony Richardson, this team has completely fucked themselves. Maybe even worse than the Broncos. Actually, no, not worse than the Broncos, but they're up there with the Broncos.
All right. Let's talk about Jalen Carter because some interesting things have developed. Dan Campbell was asked about Jalen Carter. He said that we talked to a teammate of his the other day, and man, he told us some things we didn't know that nobody probably would have known. It was like, oh, that's interesting. And when asked if it was good or bad, he said it's interesting. So looks like the Lions are probably out, but the reports came out just a couple of hours ago the Raiders will not consider Jalen Carter in the draft.
Dang, so he is starting to slip. Like this is becoming a reality now.
Yeah, and it seems like we really haven't gotten a full reason. Obviously, the Raiders need to avoid controversy at all costs, um, with everything that's gone on with that one, primarily Henry Ruggs. But look, I think it's crazy to write him off right now. Obviously, the case it's already done. He pled no contest. Um, he will face the relatively small consequences that he has, and they can't bring him any more charges from that incident. So that is kind of done and dusted. If there's something else that happened, sure, I certainly would consider it. But it, it's weird that we haven't heard anything new develop with him, except for that people are just pulling out on him.
Yeah, I really don't know how to feel about what Dan Campbell said though, because I mean, obviously from that quote, it's not good. Whatever they heard, it's not good. Or at least from what I'm gaining from this, I wonder what teammate they talked to.
Yeah,
I wonder.
that's
I
what
wonder if
I
it's a
want to know.
current teammate or it's someone who's already in the NFL.
Maybe I'm trying to think. Are any of his teammates from Georgia
I don't think
on the
DeAndre
Lions?
Swift played with Jalen Carter.
No,
That's the
I don't
first
think
one I
so.
can think of.
Did
Um,
did they draft one of the defensive players?
I mean, they took Aiden Hutchinson, but he was Michigan.
Yeah, but I feel like if- maybe they did. I don't know. But either way, it seems very weird that we haven't gotten a report on whatever this thing is outside of what Dan Campbell said.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams, it just kind of seems like they're maybe either they're taking to the media to say that they're pulling out and they're not interested in Jalen Carter anymore, or they're just not saying anything because it's like kind of a touchy topic right now, and that's also not a good sign. I feel like you want a guy or you want a team to come out and be like, we understand that what he did was, not very good. Of course, it is kind of minor what Jalen Carter did in that whole situation, but it's still not good. It's not a good look at all. But you want a team to come out and be like, look, he's a talent. We've talked to him. He seems like he's learned from, his previous mistake. And, we're all in for him. But nobody has said that, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy how much we're like with a lot of players, we hear a lot, in the draft conversations of like, yeah, we talked to the kid, like we really like what he's doing. Like nobody has had good things to say about Jalen Carter since this incident happened.
Yeah. And I was talking about this with one of my friends actually earlier today. He's the kind of talent that before recording this podcast, he should not have fallen out of the first round. Probably at least stay in the top 15. He's that talented. But as this has kind of progressed and hearing about what Dan Campbell said here, are we looking at like second round for Jalen Carter, Grayson?
I don't know, man. There's gonna be somebody, especially if he drops like mid first, that is gonna be interested enough to draft him.
I I want to think that, but from what teams have said, and from honestly what teams have not said, I there's nothing I can really like go off of except for how much of a beast he is. So I don't know. Really interesting to see how this will end up on draft night.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a development. So let's talk about the Seahawks. Supposedly, they have legitimate interest in the top quarterback prospects in this draft. That's why the owner let Pete Carroll and John Snyder borrow her plane so they could go to each major pro day last week. Obviously, today, as we're recording Thursday, um, they were at the University of Florida's to see Anthony Richardson, and he's got Richardson himself has a ton of visits to deal with after his pro day. So he's probably still meeting with these teams, but the Panthers, Colts, Titans, Falcons, Ravens, Raiders, and now the Seahawks are all on his plate today. How do you feel about the Seahawks' interest in a quarterback here?
Well, you've already talked about it on the podcast, and I'm 100% in the same boat as you. Anthony Richardson with the Seahawks is 1,000,000% his best option. He either needs to go to the Seahawks or needs to go to a team like the Seahawks where their current starting quarterback maybe isn't going to be the guy for the future. Who he's a guy who's going to be willing to like train Anthony Richardson, which Gino said that whoever they draft, he wants to help them out. And you've talked about it with Anthony Richardson. He freak athlete just looking at his body. But the dude is definitely going to have to be taught some things. If he goes anywhere, well, he'll be a day one starter. I honestly would go as far as to say you can kiss his entire career goodbye. because that first, couple games would completely set the tone. But if he can sit behind, keep working out, keep learning, keep studying, this could be a pretty fucking dangerous kid in the NFL.
Yeah, certainly. I've, gotten extremely high on Anthony Richardson in the past, month, but I truly do believe in his ability to grow once he reaches the NFL, but he needs time. Obviously, the big thing with him coming out of college was that he probably should have stayed another year. He's really only started a year and a half of college football, and I don't think he's quite ready from that standpoint. Obviously, he felt that he was ready, and the people around him thought he was ready, and look, he is an extremely enticing prospect. It's just interesting to see, especially looking at mock drafts. I've seen him all over the board in
Yeah.
different places.
Yeah, we have a really entertaining draft coming up. Like with all the Jalen Carter shit and Anthony Richardson, like you just said, mock drafts um have not really said the same thing about him. I've seen him going as far as being the first damn pick in this draft. I've seen him going all the way to like the teens. So really, really excited to see how this is going to play out. But like I said, I do agree with you, Grayson. The Seahawks is like by far the best team he could go to. And another, reason for that I didn't mention earlier is Pete Carroll would be a fantastic head coach to play under as a young quarterback. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want to be taught by.
Yeah, certainly. And then also at Florida's Pro Day, offensive lineman Osiris Torrance, he met with a couple of teams, including the Titans, Rams, Falcons, and Saints. It looks like he's got a shot to go in the first round. There is a decent amount of offensive lineman talent in the first round, so he could slip into the second. That's why I think that you see the Falcons and Rams talking to him. But the Saints with a late first could certainly snatch him up.
Yeah, I think the Saints would do good drafting an offensive lineman here.
Yeah. All right, Luke. You ready to get into this linebackers list?
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
All right, me and Luke agreed before the episode. This was probably the hardest list to make of all
Yeah.
because there's so many different things that you could go by, and it made this extremely difficult. But without further ado, let's get into it. Luke, I'm going to start it off this time.
Thank you. Let's hear it.
Number 10, I've got Dre Greenlaw. And I feel like I could be underrating him here. I could be overrating him here. But as a converted safety, he's got speed and range in the coverage that's extremely helpful to his game. And it really complements this front seven they have in San Francisco. Deep coverage, running back coverage. He can mark a tight end. It doesn't really matter. He can kind of do it all. And he's not quite on the level of Fred Warner, who stands next to him, but he certainly plays off of Fred Warner. Dre Greenlaw had 127 total tackles, 82 solo, and picked up an interception this season. He looks exactly like I couldn't ask for a better second best linebacker on my team.
I was just about to say he's a fantastic compliment. You got Fred Warner that kind of does it all, and Greenlaw is sort of your, get dirty kind of guy. And Greenlaw actually has more tackles than Fred Warner on the year, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, he does.
A great compliment to Fred Warner there. But that was a guy who didn't make my list. So we're gonna have very different lists. I'm excited. My number 10, I went with CJ Mosley. This is a guy that I've kind of kept up with for a while. Of course, whenever he played in Baltimore, I had to keep up with him because he was, killing the Steelers almost every single time the Steelers and Ravens would play. But CJ Mosley, 99 tackles on the year, and I did solo tackles again. 5 passes defended, 1 sack, 1 pick, 1 fumble recovery. And, this is a guy who's been with the Jets for a little while now. And I think he's kind of, one of those guys that he's another big reason for this culture change in New York for the Jets. Of course, they also have guys. Oh my God, who's the D tackle? I'm completely.
Quinnen Williams.
Quinnen Williams, thank you. I mean, guys like that are going to change the culture. But CJ Mosley, he's. I want to say he's the captain of the defense. He's your veteran there. I like CJ Mosley at my number 10.
All right, my number 9. I've got TJ Edwards of the Eagles. Solid season, but his stats kind of tell the story. 159 total tackles, 99 solo. He really leads, his game is led by his intelligence. He's not like this super physical player. He doesn't have like a perfect build, but he always knows what he's supposed to do and he plays his role perfectly. He goes into a lot of running back coverage, plays over the middle, little bit of rushing here and there, and all around consistency is TJ Edwards' calling card.
I like that pick. He was also seventh in tackles. Nice little top 10 finish there. Um, in tackles for a loss too. Super solid player there. I like that take. Um, this okay. My number 9 is where I put Bobby Okereke. This dude, absolute underrated dog. 99 tackles on the year, actually tied with CJ Mosley for 10th place. Two forced fumbles, two fumbles recovered. Massive jump. This is his second season in the league. I mean, compared to last season, he's just absolutely flying. It's all up from here for this guy. And I'm gonna make a little hot take here, Grayson. Bobby Okereke is a better pickup for the Giants than Darren Waller.
Ooh, I like that.
That is my hot take. This dude is I love this guy. I was so happy that I got to put him on my top 10 list because he just looked really good with the Colts. Filled in for Shaq Leonard. Of course, that was kind of a joint effort from him and Zaire Franklin, who also made my list. But solid guy, and yeah, like I said, I think he's a better pickup than Waller for the Giants. So Bobby Okereke, my number 9.
All right. My number 8, I've got Foyesada Luakon, and I feel like I'm kind of underrating him here because the guy's an absolute tackle machine. 184 total tackles, 128 solo. Ridiculous numbers here. The problem for me is that a lot of these tackles he gets is because his coverage is not very good. There's no doubt, obviously, that he is one of the best in the game, but if his coverage was better, I kind of expect the tackle numbers to decrease, and he kind of levels out there. The rest of the stats being 2 sacks, 18 and a half stuffs, 2 forced fumbles, two fumble recoveries. It's huge. He is fantastic. I think the coverage just holds him back a little bit too much for me.
Okay, he made my list much higher, but I wanted to put him higher, but like you, because of how he defends in the air, he also kind of slipped on my list. But yeah, Luakon, man, give some guy. I'm gonna give him my respect whenever we get to him. But anyway, um, number 8, I went with Matt Milano. Really solid player for the Bills. Always kind of overlooked in my opinion, but this dude, 72 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 3 interceptions. And kind of, I forget who you said on your list also did this, but Matt Milano is also converted from a safety. He did that at Boston College. And I would honestly say that Matt Milano is your best coverage middle linebacker in the NFL. So he made my number 8.
All right. My number 7 is CJ Mosley. I think that now, like, he's 30 years old now. He's, officially getting to the veteran status in this league. He is just an all around beast at the position. He swallows up ball carriers, and he can also lock you down in short coverage. 158 total tackles, 99 solo, 1 interception, 2 passes defended, 9.5 stuffs. Got himself, I believe he forced a fumble as well. CJ Mosley is unbelievably good, especially at this stage in his career, because he's kind of getting past that athletic prime and certainly still is a physical presence on the field.
And that perfectly segues into my number 7. Also, a guy who's out of his athletic prime, but still just one of the best middle linebackers in the game. And that's Levante David with the Buccaneers. 80 tackles on the year, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble. I would put him up there with one of the smartest middle linebackers in my lifetime. Seriously, I think the world of this guy. 33 years old, but still had a huge season in 2022 and proved that he can still play in the league after kind of down years in 2020 and 2021. And yeah, he can still hold his own in the league. And the Bucks did very good to keep him in the free agency. That would have sucked for them if they lost Levante David. But yeah, Levante David, my number 7.
All right. My number 6, I've got Matt Milano here. He only started playing linebacker in college after converting from safety. So that's kind of why his coverage is so top tier, but he's formed into a great run stopper as well. So he's strong enough to push past a running back, enough skill and agility to beat an offensive lineman. This guy really is a complete package. If the rushing, if like the sack numbers went up a little bit and the tackling number went up a little bit, he'd certainly be like a top five, top three guy. I just need to see a little bit more in a bigger light because I think you had a good point. Like he gets overlooked a lot. He got a ton of attention in the second half of the season, and I think it only helped him out.
For sure. And I hope we get to see a lot of him now that Tremaine Edmonds is gone too. He'll have to step it up in the run game and do even more in the pass game. So Matt Milano could be poised for an awesome 2023. So I like that at number six. Number six for me, this is where I had Zaire Franklin, a dude who like could not be further off of my radar. I never knew who this guy was until last season. He had 104 solo tackles. That put him at fourth in the league, 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and kind of like the Bobby Okereke, who played with the Colts last year as well. They both had to do such an insane job to step up for Shaq Leonard being gone because Shaquille Leonard is a premier linebacker in this league, but obviously his back injury kept him out for pretty sure all of 2020. He may have gotten some downs and some reps, but could never stay on the field. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that the Colts last season have Bobby Okereke, number 10 in tackles of last year. And like I said, Zaire Franklin at number 4. So they had 2 guys in the top 10, which I thought was really impressive. But anyway, Zaire Franklin, my number 6. Super solid linebacker.
All right. My number 5, Bobby Wagner. Like, what a year for a veteran linebacker at 32, still keeping up with the big boys, laying the huge hits, stopping the run. The coverage is still certainly there. The guy is just so much fun to watch still, and he's going back to Seattle. I absolutely love it. 140 total tackles, 81 solo, 6 sacks, 16.5 stuffs, 2 interceptions, and just for fun, he blocked a kick.
I like it. Were you done with your number 5?
Yeah.
Awesome. That leads me into my number 5, who is also Bobby Wagner. And I mean, I don't really have much to add except for it was just, it's really impressive to me when guys can go to different teams and immediately set the tone for themselves there and just play like nothing ever happened. Bobby Wagner is aging like fine wine in this league. And he'll be even better with the Seahawks, especially with the Seahawks like entire new team. They're going to be so dangerous next year. But yeah, Bobby Wagner at number 5. I love me some Bobby Wagner.
All right, number 4, I've got Roquan Smith, and it's finally looking like it was money well spent for the Ravens. Like he's just got elite ability at getting pass blockers or getting through pass blockers, finding the ball carrier, stopping the runs early, and don't let the run stop fool you because his coverage is solid as well. He had 103 total tackles, 4.5 sacks, 18.5 stuffs, but on top of it, 3 interceptions and 3 passes defended.
Like, oh man, too low, Grayson, too low.
Really?
I think so.
Actually, no. Okay, I agree with you because I completely overrated a guy here.
Okay, I'm
I'll be
excited to get
honest.
to it. I may have overrated this guy, but I like this at my number 4. This is where I put Alua Khan. Um, Obviously you already highlighted it. His 128 tackles is solo tackles is the most in the league. 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, but what kicked him out of the top 3 for me, even though he was the tackle leader, was his pass coverage, which we already kind of highlighted. But the reason I have him all the way at number 4 still is because his 128 solo tackles was 20 more than second place. And then it's from second to third is 5 tackles. Alua Khan by far, I would go as far as to say is the league's best raw tackler, and he never gets enough credit. And to kind of add to the never gets enough credit, this is the second year in a row that he is our NFL tackle leader at the end of the season because he also did it with the Falcons last year. So put some respect on Alua Khan's name. He was my number 4.
All right. And so this is where I entirely overrated somebody. I've got Levante David at 3.
Okay.
He is the ideal veteran linebacker. Like, when it comes down to it, and like the last 2 seasons, like you said, they were pretty much they were down years for sure. He bounced back this year so well. Like, it seemed like the last 2 years, he kind of lost a huge part of his game, which was his physicality. This year, he came out firing. It seemed like he had just a second life and showed off the range and coverage as well. He looked fantastic all season. Really, one of the few bright spots of this Buccaneers team all season. 124 total tackles, 3 sacks, 10 and a half stuffs. He forced a fumble and recovered one as well. Levante David is still 100% a premier linebacker in this league, even though he's getting up there in age.
Yeah, I just think the partnership of Levante David with Devin White, Grayson, just so fucking unfair. And I guarantee you that's a lot of the reason why Levante David is able to play at this kind of level is he can kind of let Devin White do all the physical stuff, and Levante David can just kind of be the brain and like the pass guy. And I think seriously, Devin White has added careers to Levante David, or not added careers, added years. Sorry.
Yeah, I certainly agree.
Yes. My number three, I went with another guy who I feel like gets overlooked a lot, but this dude, Nick Bolton from the Chiefs, he can fucking play. Second in tackles last year with 108 solo, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions. He also had 41 interception yards, which is pretty high among linebackers on this list. Like I said, he's an awesome player on this Chiefs defense, and I don't think, I guess this is kind of more of a broader statement, but I don't think a lot of the guys that are absolute dogs, like Karlaftis and even Chris Jones, anybody on this Chiefs defense that's a dog, they just kind of get looked over by the high powered offense. But Nick Bolton is someone that you can't look over, and he made my number three.
So he's a guy that actually didn't make my list. He was a guy that I certainly contemplated putting on here, but at number 2 I have Demario Davis, a guy that I think is
Wow.
extremely overlooked and
Yeah.
extremely underrated. He is the perfect combination of pass coverage and blitzing ability. The Saints weren't fantastic this year, but Demario Davis is such a force because the numbers aren't really there for him because he is so great in coverage that nobody dares to throw down the middle on him. He had 109 total tackles, 6.5 sacks, 10 stuffs, an interception, and a fumble recovery. He does it all over the place, and he's just really not getting the credit he deserves.
I love that. I think I've said it on. I've definitely told you this. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but Mario Davis by far one of my favorite non-Steelers players. He's another, like you said, another Levante David that's getting up there in age, but it's just kind of a testament to them of how they can, alter their game so they're not having to be as physical and not having to just, run down guys as much. They're playing more with their minds. And I think that's, a great testament to how good of a player that Levante David and Demario Davis can be. But yeah, Demario Davis, dude, what a fucking player he is. Um, all right. So we are down to our top two, right?
Well, that was my number 2.
Okay. So I get to do my number two. My number two, Grayson, I'm already smiling. I'm already getting the giggles. It's Fred Warner. Didn't make my
What?
number one.
Oh, you
Actually,
definitely pulled some bullshit on me. It's fine. Go ahead.
no. But anyway, Fred Warner, 79 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. And of course, I think they play a 3-4 defense in which there are 2 interior linebackers, kind of like the Buccaneers and the Steelers. So obviously, the stats really aren't there for Fred Warner. They're pretty damn good, but they're not like ridiculous. And obviously, this dude, he's definitely the best player on the 49ers defense by far, one of the best players in the whole NFL. 10 passes defended. I mean, just stupid, stats that middle linebackers just shouldn't have, in my opinion. But I just wanted to highlight this play again. The play versus CD Lamb, or Fred Warner on the line of scrimmage, just as soon as Dak said hut, just took off running and covered and got a pass defense against CD Lamb on a streak. Unfucking believable that a linebacker did that. So Yeah, Fred Warner made my number 2, but I can't wait to get to my number 1.
Okay, well, he is my number one because the guy's just a fucking animal. You're right. There's not a linebacker in this league that has the jump of Fred Warner. As soon as that ball snaps, he is gone and he knows exactly where he's got to be. He reads the defense, possibly the best in the NFL. The coverage is fantastic. He can push up at the quarterback, he can push up, stop the run. He can do it all, and he does it better than anyone.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, not better than this guy. My number 1 is where I put Roquan Smith. I honestly, I can't believe you had him at number 4, but I respect it. I respect it. Roquan Smith, 103 solo tackles, had him at third in the NFL. He also had 11 tackles for losses, which is pretty high among my list. 4.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, and what I want to highlight here is how good Baltimore's defense was at the end of last season without Lamar Jackson. I don't actually have the stats in front of me, but like for it felt like must have been 4 or 5 games in a row. They were only giving up like 2 touchdowns and a field goal while Lamar was gone. And I think a lot of that is because of this Roquan Smith trade. They gave him his money, which he absolutely deserves. They gave him a lot of years, which he absolutely deserves. And I also wanted to highlight this in his first game in the Steelers versus Ravens rivalry. He completely crushed my fucking dreams because he had a red zone interception against Trubisky. And the reason that Trubisky was in the game is because Roquan Smith sacked him and took Kenny Pickett out of the game because of concussion protocol. So if there's any way to, staple your name in that rivalry, that's how you do it. It's how Roquan Smith did it. So he made my number 1. This guy is an animal.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be honest. I thought you were going to pull some bullshit and just take Micah Parsons because of how well he plays off the line as well. Um, I can respect Roquan.
Okay. I got you. Why did you have him at 4? I want to know how he slipped on your list.
So with Roquan, it seems like okay, he does a lot of things right, but I feel like he could be better at those things. Like he could be better in coverage. Like he's great at coverage. Don't get me wrong. But I think he could spread the field a little bit better because a majority of his coverage is directly over the middle. I feel like he's not leaking outside enough.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Well, let's talk about opening day.
Oh, this is, dude, I'm
What an
so
opening
fucking
day.
excited. So fucking excited.
Okay, so we'll get it started. First hit of the season goes to Ronald Acuna. First stolen base of the season goes to Ronald Acuna. First home run of the season goes to Aaron Judge. A blast. Absolute blast. 422 dead center.
You can't see me right now, but I am rising.
Good. Just a fantastic day up and down. So we obviously had Braves win it over the Nationals 7-2. Yankees get the win over the Giants 5-0. Baltimore and Boston play a real close one. Baltimore gets it 10-9 after the Red Sox really tried to come back. They were down 10-5 going into the bottom of the 8th, put up 3, put up 2 in the bottom of the 9th, and really pushed them. But the Orioles come out with the win. Chicago gets the win over the the Cubs get the win over the Brewers 4-0 off of one inning of scoring. Just one. Bottom of the 3rd, they put up 4, and that was it. And then Tampa gets the win over Detroit. Not a surprise whatsoever. Shane McClanahan picks up his first win of the season. And probably one of the best games of the day, Philadelphia versus Texas. Texas takes it 11-7 after DeGrom came out and pitched like shit. He gave up 6 extra base hits. I believe it was 3 doubles, 2 triples, and a home run in the first 3 innings.
Big statement from the Phillies there. I was actually watching that game live, and I really just couldn't believe it. DeGrom with his new team didn't make a good impression. They still got the win, at least.
They certainly did get the win off of 9 runs in the bottom of the 4th. They followed up with 2 more runs in the bottom of the 5th. They take an 11-6 lead there, and the Phillies really just couldn't put anything together in the last 4. They did put up 1 run on the board in the 7th. It ends 11-7. This is a big statement by the Rangers offense because I feel like there was definitely questions surrounding this offense. They didn't really add much in the offseason. They stuck with the guys that they signed long term last year with Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager. Nate Lowe had a decent game. Adolis Garcia, 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs, a solid game out of him. And Jonah Heim behind the plate, who was stellar last year, got himself 2 hits and 2 RBIs as well. This Rangers lineup is actually pretty damn good. Like, Brad Miller is certainly not the guy he was, especially with the Phillies. He played a good role there, but 1 for 4, got himself 2 RBIs. Robbie Grossman had a great game. He only went 1 for 3, had hit a 3-run home run off of Aaron Nola in the fourth inning. This Rangers lineup is actually something to look out for, and I really do think that the Rangers could put something together here. They don't have the best rotation, but if DeGrom is on, Martin Perez is certainly going to be there, and I think this Rangers team is going to be better than what most people probably thought.
Are they a dark horse for you?
I wouldn't say they're a dark horse whatsoever. I don't think they're making the playoffs. Their division's too strong for them to make the playoffs because they're gonna have to play the Stros. They're gonna have to play the Mariners. It's not gonna work out well there.
Yeah. But I mean, opening day 11-7 against the Phillies, especially after, I feel like they did a good job recovering from, DeGrom's struggles, which was kind of the story of the game, I think, is, Grom is one of the best pitchers probably of all time. And, he's with a new team. And I felt like, with him struggling, it kind of would have rattled the entire team and Philly would have just ran away from it. But the Rangers showed some, resilience against a really good baseball team. And I think you're right. Maybe not a dark horse, but definitely a team to look out for.
Yeah, wild. And like the Phillies pitching, it was just so bad. Like Aaron Nola gets the start. He only goes 3.2, gives up 4 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned, only gets 4 strikeouts, and he gives up the home run. And then Gregory Soto, who has been the closer for the Tigers for I think the last 2 years, he's been an all-star, comes in, doesn't even record an out, and gives up 3 earned runs, 4 runs total. Doesn't even have a qualifying ERA because he didn't finish even a third of an inning.
He got the loss.
Yeah. And then I believe it's Connor Brogdon. Yeah, Connor Brogdon comes in and doesn't really do much else. He does record a full inning of work, but 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, and 1 home run. That puts him at an 18 ERA. Enjoy that one. But it's just interesting to see from a team that just made the World Series, and
Yeah.
it's
I
crazy.
mean, they'll be looking to bounce back for sure.
And then Pittsburgh gets the win 5-4 over the Reds. Um, Toronto wins a thriller in St. Louis, 10-9. Toronto opened it up, 3 runs in the first. St. Louis answered with 1 run in the bottom of the first, and then Toronto kept it going. They go up 4-1 going into the third. St. Louis brings it back to 4-3, and then Toronto makes it a 5-3 game, and then they tie it up at 5 after the fourth. They go into the fifth, nobody scores. St. Louis takes the lead in the sixth, 6-5. And then in the seventh, Toronto answers. St. Louis answers again. Toronto comes back with 2. St. Louis comes back with 2. They have a 1-run lead there. Yes, a 1-run lead. Could not get that one out. And then top of the ninth, Toronto comes up. They put in 2 more. They take the lead 10-9, and they take the win. Jordan Romano gets his first save of the year.
What a game. What a game. And I mean, this Blue Jays, they've, trust me, as a fan of another ALS team, I kind of have to keep up with some of those guys. And the Blue Jays have been knocking on the door of the Yankees for, it seems like 2 or 3 years now. And this season, we're going to get into what our predictions will be for the divisions, but the Blue Jays, I feel like it's now or never. They've been lurking for too long. It's time to really take control for them. And showing the fight against the Cardinals here, they look pretty good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And for the Cardinals, every single player in the starting lineup recorded a hit. That's fantastic stuff. And then Minnesota gets the 2-0 win over the Royals. Not a surprise. Royals suck. The New York Mets squeak one out against the Marlins. It was tied up going into the seventh. Mets take the 2-run lead after the seventh. Then they just hold throughout. Scherzer had not a great game here. He ended up going kind of deep here, but ends up giving up the 3 runs late, but still records 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts. Not the typical start we'd see from Scherzer. Typically, he's gonna be, pretty dominant throughout his start, and then as soon as he falters, they typically pull him. They let him finish the sixth, but a rough one for him.
Um, not the best look, but I mean, he's somebody that I'm sure will probably adjust. His second outing, so get the jitters out. Opening day, but I would have liked to have seen him play better.
Yeah, and then for tomorrow's game between Mets and Marlins, Justin Verlander is going to be out. They put him on the IL with I'm trying to remember. It is a low grade major teres sprain. That's the muscle like in your armpit essentially. Um,
Wow.
he obviously pulled that probably just throwing a bullpen in the last couple of days. With how late we heard this news because that news came out, I believe during the first slate of games, so around like 1 o'clock. But yeah, tough stuff. Because look, as baseball fans, we want to see Justin Verlander pitch.
Yeah, especially coming after a Cy Young at 40 years old.
Yeah, a fantastic game or a fantastic pitcher, and he should be back soon. It's just kind of a strain in the muscle, so I don't doubt that he'll come back. And then the White Sox, they get the 3-2 win over the reigning champions Houston Astros, a late
Shoot 'em.
win too. This game was flying by. I believe it only took 2 hours to get through the seventh. Houston took a 1-0 lead after the seventh, and then the White Sox immediately answer in the eighth. They make it a 1-1 game. The White Sox put up two in the top of the ninth. Houston tries to fight back with a home run in the ninth, and then, sorry, I believe it was a home run. I think that was Jordan Alvarez. Um, but it just, was to no avail. The White Sox get the 3-2 win. And let me say, Dylan Cease was absolutely dealing to start this game off. Like, just, oh my God, was it ridiculous. He ended up 6.1, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts. But I believe, yeah, it was 3 innings, 7 strikeouts to start the game.
Yeah, I was about to say. I know he had a lot early on. Um, I know when I was making my MLB predictions, kind of doing research on players, a lot of people were betting on Dylan Cease to be your AL Cy Young. So who knows? We'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely coming in second last year, lit a fire under his ass, and now he gets to call his own pitches with that pitch comm on his glove. So it seems like he's really liking that. As it stands right now, there's a couple of games going on. Colorado's got a 5-2 lead over the Padres in the bottom of the sixth. The Angels have a 1-0 lead over the Athletics in the top of the sixth. The Dodgers lead the Diamondbacks 5-2 into the fifth, and Cleveland and Seattle are all tied up at 0 to end the sixth. This has been probably one of the most exciting opening days that I've witnessed in a long time. And this is the first time that all 30 teams played on opening day since I believe like the mid 70s.
Really?
Yeah, so typically it'd be like a couple of teams would play on Thursday and then everybody would play on Friday or, whatever day it starts. They got everybody to start on the same day, and I think it just made for such a fantastic day of baseball, and it's going to set up a great weekend.
I was about to say because I thrive in this madness, man. The fact that everybody's playing today, it just a full day of baseball. Kind of like towards the middle of the week too. Just so nice.
Yeah, it is fucking tastic. All right, Luke, we made our lists before this happened, but
Yes.
let's go through our division winners predictions. I'm going to be honest, I think I have a couple of hot takes here.
I think I do too.
All right, well, let's get it started with the
I'll start
AL
first.
East.
I will start. First, I gotta fucking find it in my notes here because I take shit on paper like I'm 50. All right, I'm ready. So, AL East. I went ahead and said the Yankees. But August of 2022, which was last season, the Yankees went 10 and 18 in the month of August. They were averaging 3.6 runs per, which was fourth worst in the AL at the time. But they started last season 40 and 15, which was their best start since 1980 or 1998, in which that year they won the World Series. They were on pace at that time to win 118. Maybe with some of the additions they've made, they will finally have that consistency that they need. Because I mean that's kind of the story of last season. You started 40 and 15, and by August you were a 10 and 18 team in that month. So you can't be crawling to the finish like the Yankees were last year. But like I said, maybe with the additions that they've made, they'll finally have a more consistent lineup.
All right. Yeah, I've got the Blue Jays coming in first. I think the Blue Jays are going to be a fantastic team this year. The additions they made on top of what they already have that's just been growing over the last couple of years, they look fantastic. I think the Yankees will be a close second. I think it's going to be kind of back and forth throughout the season, but I think the deciding factor here is going to be the the second to last series of the season. These two face off September 26th through 28th. This is when the Blue Jays will probably clinch the division. I think it'll be kind of similar to where at least the close of the season last season for the NL East, where the Braves and Mets got super close. It was very back and forth for about a month, and then the Braves ended up taking a series over the Mets and just completely locked it up there.
I like it. I mean, the Blue Jays. It really, I feel like this one could go either way, Yankees or Blue Jays. But I like the Blue Jays pick. As I said earlier, they're a team that's been knocking at the door, but it's finally time for them to bust in. I think so. I could see them winning the AL East for sure.
All right, let's talk about the AL Central.
Yeah, so here I have the Guardians. Look, they brought in guys like Josh Bell and Mike Zunino who are going to offer, great options for them. They have MVP candidate Jose Ramirez on their team, plus my AL reliever of the year, Emmanuel Clase, who can fucking close a game. Let me tell you. I have some fun facts about this division, though, Grayson. There are other teams in that division. You have the Twins, right? In 2019, they had 101 wins. In 2020, they won the division again. But in 2021, they came in last. In 2022, they came in third. So kind of strange there, but they have a couple of guys. I want to say they have a couple of young guys like Roy Lewis, 23 years old, tore his ACL in May in 2022, played 12 games. Within those 12 games, he batted 300, had 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and around almost a 900 OPS. Awesome utility player there. You also have Jose Miranda, 24 years old, who's a first baseman. He, I want to say, logged the full year last year, batted 268, 15 home runs, 66 RBI, almost an 800 OPS. He actually had a 751 OPS. That was seventh highest by a Twins rookie. And then, kind of just to list, that was over the past 20 years, by the way, for the Twins rookie stat. You also have guys like Alex Kirilloff, I think is how you pronounce his name,
Yep.
who's 25. Joe Ryan, who's 26. Duran, who's 25. You got Trevor Larnach, I think is how I can't really read my own handwriting here. Who's
I
26 years
believe
old.
that's it. Yeah. Or
He was one
Larnock.
of the Larnach. Yeah, that sounds about right. He was one of the Twins' leaders in WAR before his core muscle surgery last year. And I just kind of think like they have a lot of guys that could make this a well-rounded team. A lot of young guys, like I just mentioned. But will it come together for the Twins? I don't really think so. I think the Guardians are poised to take the division.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it's the Guardians. I don't really think it'll be that close either. Um, the White Sox they're always kind of the team that's supposed to be contending for it, but they lost Rodon, they lost Jose Abreu, and I feel like they didn't do enough in the offseason for me. They pick up Andrew Benintendi. I believe they made two more pickups, but nothing that really moves the needle in my mind. And for me, I just don't think they did enough to keep it close. with the Twins, I really like what you had to say. The youth is certainly there. I need more pitching if I'm the Twins. I need more reliable pitching, and they just don't have that, and that's going to be their downfall. Obviously, the Royals. There's nothing to talk about there, nor with the Tigers. But yeah, I think the Guardians certainly take this division. They looked so good last year. They're coming off of such fantastic momentum, and yeah, I think this is finally the year where it's not like Jose Ramirez is a perennial MVP candidate. It's like Jose Ramirez is going to win the MVP.
Interesting take there.
He's not my pick. I think he's certainly going to be a finalist. He's going to be there when the year's over, and we're going to have to think he could win it.
I just think I would like to see the Twins do well, but I'd pose this question to you: do the Twins finish higher than the White Sox?
Um,
I think they do.
They
I think
certainly
they do.
can. They certainly can, but I will say the White Sox brought a ton of players back from injury, and that's going to be big. If Yasmani Grandal can get his shit together behind the plate, obviously he can frame. It appears his defense is getting better, but he's got to hit the ball. He can't just walk every time. That's been his problem the last 2 years. Luis Robert's back and healthy. Eloy Jimenez is back and healthy. It's going to be big. And Andrew Vaughn is certainly set up to look real good this year. Been in the majors now a couple of years, and I really like their lineup. I can't trust that it's going to live up to the potential, but I think that the White Sox still have the edge over the Twins in my mind.
Okay, I like it. Moving on to the AL West. Ah, unfortunately, I think it'll be the Astros. I don't want it to be the Astros, but despite losing Cy Young winner Justin Verlander, you also have guys like Framber Valdez and Christian Javier who are going to be, they're going to be fantastic. I don't feel like it's that big of a deal to lose Verlander, although he was Cy Young. You have young guys that can back that up. Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker will only get better from where they are now. Jordan Alvarez, you mentioned, smacked the fuck out of a baseball today. 100 and what, 12 miles an hour?
Yes.
Yeah, so looking good there. Jose Abreu from the White Sox ended up landing at first base for the Astros. So they've added a good guy there. Yeah, I think I think it's going to be the Astros, unfortunately.
I'm in the same boat, but I think it won't be quite as easy as it has been. I think the Mariners give them a fight. I see the Astros. I don't even think they're gonna break 100. This would be like the first time in at least a couple of years that they don't. And I see them probably finishing at like 97. But I feel like the big thing they're going to be missing is the consistency of Justin Verlander. Obviously, Framber and Christian Javier are fantastic pitchers, but they give up contact. Framber Valdez is certainly not a strikeout pitcher, and I think that's going to really bite them in the ass. And I don't know. I really like the Mariners. I think that probably come August, the Astros will probably have a pretty good lead. Mariners might make a climb back up in September to kind of push them and most likely make the wild card.
I'm still chewing, so keep going.
Well, then I'll just talk about the NL East because I don't have much else to talk about the AL West. I'm taking the Braves. I have to. I can't. I can't set aside my bias that much. I have to go with the Braves, probably by a few games over the Phillies. I don't trust this Mets team to stay healthy, and it's already not on a good foot with Justin Verlander already on the IL. But I think all three of these teams could certainly make the playoffs again. I don't know if that's gonna be the case. The Phillies could certainly just be shit out of nowhere. The Mets could certainly do it as well. I think the Braves are definitely the most consistent team up and down when it comes to the pitching staff and the lineup. So I think the Braves win it. It definitely won't be without a fight, but maybe we see 100 wins this year again.
I definitely think they do. And that leads into my pick. It's the Braves, and Grayson, there should be no bias here. In my opinion, the Braves right now are the most balanced team in baseball. I posed that question to you. How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think once Raisel Iglesias comes off the IL, we'll have an elite closer. We've got the relievers with, picking up Lucas Luque from the Yankees. We made a couple of other moves and I'm totally blanking on them, but we kept a ton of guys, and that's a big part of the success that we're going to see from the Braves. Obviously, the pitching staff's fantastic with Freed, when Kyle Wright comes back, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, hasn't been the guy that we've been looking for, but certainly a guy that can still start games in the MLB. At this point, there's probably like five more guys worthy of a starting spot in this rotation. Jared Schuster, the young guy, as well as Dylan Dodd. Ian Anderson might come back up. Mike Soroka could end up in this rotation. There is no telling, but there is so much starting pitching, and it's so deep that I could see, even if somebody goes down with an injury, we've got a very good fill in to come in.
Yeah, plenty of depth there. Also, on the field defensively, I don't feel like the Braves have a lot of their like one-dimensional players. You have defenders and guys that can, swing the fucking bat. And I feel like that's also, kind of leads to what I was talking about earlier with them being the most balanced team in baseball. But to kind of, shed some light on the other teams, the Phillies added Trey Turner on top of Reese. Or no, they added. Did they add Reese this year?
Who?
Reese Hopkins, I
Hoskins?
think.
No, he came up with the
Hoskins,
Phillies.
my
He's been
bad.
there for a few years, but he's actually out for the season, I think.
Oh,
He hurt
unbelievable.
himself in spring training.
Okay, well, you've added Trey Turner there. He'll get to play with Bryce Young. They also added Taiwan
Taiwan.
Walker. Taiwan. Sorry, I once again cannot read my own handwriting. Um, so the Phillies definitely are going to have the best shot at second place, but I nobody should compare to this Braves team. I mean, I seriously think it's that good. I wanted to shed some light on the Marlins and just kind of say that I think they have a fun young team, but with the Phillies and the Braves, there's absolutely no way for them to even have a shot. So I would like to see them come in third, but who knows with the Marlins?
Yeah, there really is no telling. Let's talk about the NL Central though, because I think the Cardinals will probably be the first team in the MLB to clinch their division this season.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh, I
really
don't
I
know.
think the Cardinals are very good. I I like the Brewers, but I think there's certainly players on their team that are a little too like they're gonna underperform and they're gonna underperform at the wrong times. And then with the Cubs, I don't trust the volatility. There's so many guys in that lineup that can just hit a slump and not get out of it. Dansby Swanson being the biggest candidate for that, but Cody Bellinger, Eric Hosmer, the three biggest additions of the offseason in the offense for the Cubs are three of probably the most volatile players they could have gotten.
That's a good point. I guess whenever I was doing this, I was just kind of assuming, like, I was thinking optimistic for the Cubs, I guess. Maybe not very realistic, but look, you're right though about the Cardinals. They definitely have a solid lineup. NL MVP Goldie, Nolan Arenado, who both are coming off of decent World Baseball Classics. They brought in Wilson Contreras. I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
How good do you think Lars Nootbaar is looking after the World Baseball Classic? You think he's going to be a big
He
part of this Cardinals team, or just kind of be a player on the team?
So he's already batting, I believe, second in the lineup. The guy, he's coming off of phenomenal performance. He is genuinely a fantastic baseball player, and I really do think he's going to make a huge jump this season. But on top of it, the Cardinals have prospects coming up. Brendan Donovan was their leadoff hitter. Matthew Libertor in the minors, who probably will end up getting called up again. A tough start last year, but still a top prospect. Nolan Gorman, Dylan Carlson, like so many pieces on this team. And you brought up the pickup of Wilson Contreras. That's got to be the biggest one here. Wilson Contreras is an impact player, and that's just what he does. He comes in, he smacks the shit out of the ball. A fantastic glove behind the plate. Like the guy is insanely good, and he only adds to a team that was already very good last year.
I just think, the one thing with the Cardinals is they're still relying on Adam Wainwright, who absolutely love the guy. I've pretty much grown up with him, but he's by no means an ace anymore. You have Jack Flaherty, who made 9 starts in 2020, 15 in 2021, and 8 in 2022. And I have a little quote from him here. I've watched 3 playoff losses in the last 2 seasons, and I haven't pitched in any of them, and that does not feel good. No one wants to go out and lose, but if we're going to lose, I want to have the ball in my hands. If Jack Flaherty can stay healthy for this team, I will agree with you that yes, they should 100% probably be the first winners of their division, first people to clinch their division. The Cardinals should. But the Cubs, man, they seem very well rounded. And like I said earlier, maybe I'm being a little bit too optimistic with how Dansby and Bellinger can play. But they also have a rotation of James Talion, Justin Steele, and Marcus Stroman that's way better than the Cardinals, in my opinion. But there's a lot of uncertainty around the Cubs. I just think that they're a much more well-rounded team. The Brewers have good pitching, but zero bats. I mean, Christian Yelich hasn't been himself in years, it feels like. So I think the Cubs are definitely second place for sure. But the Cardinals will be first, but I don't think it's going to be by a lot.
I wouldn't even say the Cubs are for sure second place because the Brewers pitching just it does it for me personally. Like
Yeah.
Corbin Burns, absolute monster. Brandon Woodruff, one of the most underrated starting pitchers in the league. I'd consider him like a top 50 player in baseball.
Wow.
And you've also just got other pieces throughout this lineup that are very good. You've got, the young catcher and William Contreras that they got from the Braves. You've got obviously Christian Yelich can be fantastic, can certainly be below average. Jesse Winker, a huge lefty power bat, a big force against righties. Wasn't today, but still hits righties fantastic. And they have the potential to be fantastic, but I think they're kind of in a similar position as the Cubs. There's firepower on the lineup. The pitching, it's there. I think the Brewers certainly have the edge there in pitching, but it's just up to can they stay consistent over the whole course of the season?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to go ahead and take my spot back. If you were done with that division,
Yeah.
NL West, I have the Dodgers here. Despite losing both of the Turners, Trey and Justin, this team still has insane talent, in my opinion. You got Kirsch, Arias, Dustin May, and Noah Syndergaard as your pitchers. Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Mac Muncy, and Mookie Betts, who is highly underrated, always has been, in my opinion. So awesome players there for the Dodgers. But to speak on the Padres for a second, I did some excuse me, I did some digging, Grace, on the Padres. Now, obviously, the Padres have this ridiculous, like, flashy baseball team. I mean, on paper, it just looks like something that you would be like, without any factors, you could just be like, oh yeah, I'd have that guy on my team. Oh yeah, I'd have that guy on my team. The Padres have it. I mean, they just have such a fucking stacked team. But since August 2nd, which was the trade deadline last season, the Padres only went 29 and 27. And you can make the argument, yeah, they brought in guys like Xander Bogaerts, and Juan Soto now has a full offseason to be a part of that team. Well, pump the brakes a little bit because I'm going to make a comparison here, and you're going to really appreciate this, Grayson. The Dodgers are Bayern Munich, and PSG is like the Padres. The Dodgers and the players that they have established themselves as awesome players for the Dodgers. The Padres have just kind of loaded this team full of superstars, and they haven't really proven themselves. Like, yeah, they were in the playoffs last year, but they didn't, in my opinion, really make enough noise. So I think the Padres are going to be a lot worse than a lot of people think, and the Dodgers are going to take this division.
I'm entirely in the same boat with you. I really wanted to say that the Padres were going to win it, but I feel like it comes down to, and what I've said with multiple other teams throughout this, is volatility, especially in the rotation. I cannot trust Blake Snell or Yu Darvish for that to be super consistent like they're going to need them to be. Joe Musgrove can be great. The other pitchers in that rotation can do their jobs. But Blake Snell could go out there and give up 9 runs in the first 3 innings. Or he could go out there and shut them down for 7. There's no telling. With Yu Darvish, It just comes down to, can he get the strikeouts, or is he just going to give up a bunch of home runs because he does it all the time?
Yeah, I like that take. And people really, the Dodgers are obviously a fun team to look at, on paper, but right now I'm watching them lose 7-2 to the Rockies. Of course, they have two people on with no outs, but I mean, still, people really need to pump the brake on this Padres team because in sports, I mean, you would like to think like if your owners could give you money, you can just go out and just sign whoever the fuck you want to. But it's how the team meshes together. And I don't think the Padres have really proven to me that they can do that yet. And that's why the Dodgers are going to beat them in this division every single time.
Yeah. And watch out for the D-backs to make a wild card spot if the Padres suck.
Yeah, kind of like the Orioles. Definitely, a sleeper team there with a lot of young talent that'll turn some heads for sure.
Yeah. All right. I do want to ask you, who do you think your wild card team? So your winners in the NL, you had the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers. Who do you think makes the wild card? So who are the three best teams
Ooh,
after those three?
definitely the Diamondbacks.
Oh,
Um,
I'm glad you said that.
yeah, definitely the Diamondbacks. I'm gonna go. There's only one wild card game, right? And it's between two teams, obviously,
No,
right?
so they've changed it. So there's three wild card teams now.
Okay. Phillies, Phillies, Cubs, Padres. Actually, no, Phillies, Cubs, Diamondbacks. That's gonna be my hot take. Is that the
Wow.
Padres just don't even make it?
I'm gonna go Phillies, Mets, Diamondbacks.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I don't trust the Cubs. I can't trust the NL Central to provide two playoff teams. All right, and then in the AL, your winners were the Yankees, Guardians, and Astros.
Yes,
Okay, so who are your three wild card teams?
definitely the Blue Jays. I'm gonna go Blue Jays, Orioles, Mariners. Mariners.
Okay, yeah, I'm essentially in the same boat. I'm going Yankees, Orioles, Mariners.
Dude, a Yankees Orioles wild card would be awesome. That'd be so much fun.
It really would. All right, well, that's gonna do it for the MLB. Have had so much fun with the MLB. Um, Luke's got my MLB TV subscription, so he can watch all the games. We're living life over here at Second and Short. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we really are. I just, what do you think about this game right now? Can we get like a game update from Grayson here?
Yeah, look, this is exactly what we're talking about with the Padres. I can't trust them. They're giving up 7 runs to the Rockies, and they're in San Diego. The only time the Rockies should score more than 4 runs is at home. Like the Rockies lineup is truly, truly fucking abysmal. And the fact that like I need to look at the box score. I haven't obviously paid a ton of attention since doing a podcast here, but let me check out the box score real quick. I'll give it a little more analysis.
Well, I just wanted to highlight that Lamet, the Rockies pitcher here, just threw a 97-mile-an-hour. It looked like a sinker to me, just right on the
Yeah,
edge of the
the
strike
Nelson
zone there.
Lamet is filthy. He actually used to play for the Padres. He was a
Lamet,
starting pitcher
okay.
with the Padres for a while, but yeah, bro's got nasty stuff in that 97 mile per hour. I think it's a two seam. It's just got hard horizontal break on the arm side.
Okay, I was about to say it definitely wasn't a fastball, but he threw that shit hard.
Yeah, but look, throughout this lineup for the Padres, Juan Soto is 0 for 3 with a strikeout. That should never happen. He needs to be getting on base. Manny Machado, 1 for 2, 1 strikeout. Not not great. I like he hit in one of their 2 runs, but once again, need more. Xander Bogarts couldn't ask for
Yeah,
more here. 3 for 3. He's got a run. Fantastic. Jake Cronenworth has to step up for this team. He's been fantastic these last 2 years. His rookie year was absolutely amazing, and 0 for 2 is just so bad. And then you've got Carpenter, who certainly do not expect a single thing from Matt Carpenter at this point in the year. He's an August or September guy through and through.
Wow. And the Rockies just got out of it
Damn.
after a Juan Soto first pitch ground out.
Yeah, Juan Soto is really fucking me over right now. All right, and then like if David Dahl's in your lineup and you're not the Rockies last year, you obviously made some you made a mistake because David Dahl should not be in your lineup. Obviously, Tatis just isn't ready. But when he comes back, I'd assume he would replace Dahl in right field. I would prefer Tatis at DH. I don't trust his glove in the outfield, but you know what? I'm not Bob Melvin, so it's not my problem.
And that's not a good look. The Padres had two guys on right there and just couldn't
Yeah.
capitalize with that fucking ridiculous lineup.
They've brought in they've had three different pitchers. They've given up 3 earned runs, 2 earned runs, and 2 earned runs.
Unbelievable.
Like this is what I'm talking about with this rotation. Blake Snell, there's no telling what he's going to do. Is he going to look like the Cy Young type pitcher that he was in Tampa? Doesn't look like it because he just went 4.1, give up 6 hits and 3 earned runs. Yeah, he got 9 strikeouts. I don't give a shit. You didn't stop him from scoring.
Yeah. Not a good opening day look for the Padres. I mean, who knows? Maybe they can come back in this one, but they're definitely not showing, like they really want to. And the Rockies pitchers here look really nice in relief. So,
Yeah,
what a game.
certainly an interesting game. And then update just right before we get into this Premier League stuff. Cleveland and Seattle still tied up at 0 in the bottom of the 8th. The Dodgers have the 7-2 lead in the top of the 7th over the D-backs, and LA holds on to that 1-0 lead over Oakland. Let's see how Ohtani did today. 6 innings, no earned runs, 10 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 hits. That is Shohei Ohtani for you, people.
That's that $1 billion contract that's impending.
Yes,
Just wait on
that looming $1 trillion for Shohei Ohtani. He fucking
Oh,
deserves
man.
it. I can't say he doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. But the thing is though, and I hope that this can change in the future. And I want to get your take on this because this is definitely like a systematic thing in baseball. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an issue, but I personally dislike how late we get Japanese players into the MLB because I want to say that Ichiro didn't start off at like a young age in the MLB either. And Shohei is like what, 28?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I guess I'm asking you like why does that happen, especially from Japanese players?
So I think it's something that's gonna change soon, but there's not a fantastic scouting ability at least in Japan for the MLB. Japanese players want to play in Japan, at least as of the last however many years. They want to play in Japan. It's the same reason American players want to play in the MLB. But the NPB and the KBO as well in Korea, they are established baseball leagues, unlike the leagues that we see in Central America, in the Caribbean, in South America. That's why all of those players get recruited very easily at a young age by the MLB teams, and they immediately come up. Like, so Japan is just a whole different situation. Obviously, they're producing fantastic players. The guys like obviously Shohei Ohtani and Ichiro, but um, other players. Yu Darvish came over, has been a very good pitcher. Um, Masahiro Tanaka, guys like him, and then the new guys that are coming in. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he was playing for Team Japan. I can't remember his name, but Kodai Senga for the Mets. Shintaro Fujinami, the pitcher for the A's, fantastic prospect there. He's in their starting roster. There is a ton of talent coming from Japan, and I think over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to see the age of those guys going down.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight Chris Bryant with his new team up at bat here. 2 for 4, double and a single. Like it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Chris Bryant being on the Rockies, but whatever.
I don't either. I mean, he's Not going to get to the postseason with
No,
this team.
never. That will never happen. All right, let's talk about the Prem.
Let's do it.
It's coming back from the international break, and us Americans are gonna have to wake up bright and early on Saturday to watch a fantastic match. Man City versus Liverpool is getting played 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Liverpool has some relatively big inactives in this one. Thiago Alcantara still out. Luis Diaz is still out. Jordan Henderson's doubtful. Darwin Núñez doubtful as well. That loses a lot of firepower from this Liverpool lineup.
I think that they're going to be fine though. This Liverpool team, they have to be hungry. You still got Nunez, who has seemed to found his spot on the wing rather than at striker. But Manchester City, man, have been flying recently, and this Liverpool team is kind of just it's a lot better than it was, 2 months ago, but it's still kind of it's shaky. And Liverpool's away record going into the Etihad this weekend: 3 wins, 3 draws, 7 losses. Not where you want to be at if you're going to play a loaded team like Manchester City, and also a team that Holland seems to be finding his early season form again and is just scoring for fun, basically.
Well, so at the
Um,
moment, Holland is doubtful with a groin injury. That's
oh,
what
okay.
um, kept him out of the Norway team for the international break. It looks like that's still looming. He's doubtful. He's not out, but might not see him. And then Phil Foden is out until early May. Uh, so they're missing some firepower in this offense. They certainly are deep enough to bring it back. They'll have Jack Grealish most likely on the left wing, and then you'll throw in Alvarez at striker. It's certainly fantastic replacements, but they don't fully fill the void. It's very hard to fill the void of Phil Foden and Erling Haaland.
Oh, 100%. And I just wanted to keep talking about Liverpool here for a second. They haven't completed a double over City for it's been a long ass time in 17 seasons. They've only done it twice. The most recent was with Klopp's actually debut season, 2015 to 16. Liverpool beat City in both at Anfield and the Etihad. I'm actually going to predict it'll happen again this year. I think Liverpool are going to beat Manchester City. I really do.
I don't know. I still trust Manchester City to create chances. And that's the biggest thing. Kevin De Bruyne first in the Prem in big chances created with 24. But on the Liverpool side, they haven't scored in their last 2 matches. They haven't scored in 3 away matches. I don't trust them to get a win at Etihad Stadium.
Yeah, but I didn't trust them to get a win at Old Trafford over United, but they scored 7 times and didn't let up a goal.
Fair enough.
So, Liverpool are one of those teams where the stats never back them up. But when they seem to be in a corner, and with a position to really make a statement, they usually show out against the bigger teams. I'm going to go Liverpool 2, City 1.
I'm gonna go City 2, Liverpool 1.
I like it. Just a flip flop.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about Arsenal versus Leeds. These are two teams in interesting positions, really. Arsenal, of course, sits atop the Premier League with with 69 points. That's 8 clear of Manchester City in second. Leeds, however, in 14th with 26 points. That only leaves them 3 points clear of 20th place. So this is a big one. There is certainly teams this weekend that could pick up some points that are in the relegation zone, and anybody really behind Leeds could pick up some points here, and Leeds could plummet into the relegation zone if they take a loss here.
Which, I mean, they're playing Arsenal, Grayson. Leeds are really, really not in a good spot here at all. Especially with Saka coming off of a fantastic international break, getting a goal against Italy, I believe, too. So Arsenal are looking really good. Really, really good. Of course, it felt like maybe it was kind of a month ago where Arsenal was kind of slowing down. They hit some bumps in the road, but now they've found, their form again, and they're kind of right up there with City as far as how hot they are right now. But like you said, Leeds are backed into a corner. They are 3 points away from 20th place, sitting at 14th place, which is just still so cool to me that the Premier League is this close this year. But Leeds just have no chance here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there is some key inactives on both sides, really. Tyler Adams is out for Leeds with a hamstring injury. Stuart Dallas still out with that broken leg. Maximilian Wober, he's out with a hamstring injury until late April. They're pretty screwed there. But then Arsenal, they're going to be missing most likely William Saliba, Thomas Partey, and Kieran Tierney are all doubtful in this one. So the defense is taking a bit of a hit there. I still have Arsenal probably 2-0.
I was thinking the same thing. 2-0 for Arsenal. I have a question for you though, Grayson, in regards to this game, and I guess to just mainly in regards to Leeds. Weston McKinney on Leeds, right? Finally had moved to a team, as an American in Europe, really prove himself. He had already been playing at Juve with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and all of those guys in Italy, and kind of worked his way into like some of the Champions League and Serie A lineups. But he's come to Leeds and not really had the best effect on them. Do you
Yeah,
think Weston McKinney has hit his cap?
I don't think he's hit his cap. I think he's run into the brick wall that is the Premier League.
Okay, and what do you mean by that? Just the Premier League is the best in the world, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
look, it's significantly different than playing in Italy, and I think that that's taking a toll on him. It takes time to get used to playing in the Premier League, especially a young player and in the midfield. The midfield is very hard to play in the Prem. So a majority of the best midfielders in the world play in the Premier League, and it makes it like 10 times more difficult when you have to play this field general position against guys that are every single week you're going to play a world class player.
I 100% agree with that. And that's actually something that I've never thought before until you just brought up the point that it is harder to play like a center mid role in the Prem. Because look, I feel like in other leagues, you can have maybe one or two, a standard formation would have three central midfielders, or at least the way that I would, normally run my team if I was a manager. You have your, kind of brute guy, the guy that's a little bit more defensive minded, a guy that's really athletic. And then your other center mids kind of just got to be sort of playmakers. I feel like kind of the offensive guys, the ones who can pick out the passes and all the long balls. The wingers making the runs and the strikers making the runs. You need guys that can pick those guys out. In the Prem, I feel like if you're a center mid, you have to kind of do everything. You have to be that big physical presence because the Premier League is full of just wardrobe looking like players. It's kind of ridiculous. But you also have to be a playmaker, and you also have to do that for 90 minutes. So I agree with you. It is harder to be a center mid in the Prem because you're asked of more. You have to do it all in the Prem.
Yeah, it's a giant change. And we were both going 2-0 there.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Chelsea versus Villa. Two, they're tied right now in points at 38. It's easy to say that Chelsea's the better team, but once again, we look at that inactives list and it just makes me wonder because Azpilicueta's still doubtful from that concussion that I feel like he's been out for like a month.
Yeah.
And
It's a
then
nasty injury.
Wesley Fofana with the thigh injury, he's doubtful. Obviously, Thiago Silva out. Reece James doubtful. Raheem Sterling still out. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, luckily, is not going to play.
Yeah.
Mason Mount got a hip injury. He's going to be out. Kai Havertz is doubtful. He's sick right now. Eduard Mendy got a broken finger. He's doubtful. And Armando Broja, which, not a big game changer. He's got a knee injury. That is a laundry list of fucking players that are
And
out.
another one that I wanted to add to that is they're also saying that even though N'Golo Conte has been practicing with Chelsea, he also stayed in London whenever the French Euro qualifiers happened. He wasn't called up and stayed in London. And I've seen him, obviously I've seen him in training. I think he also played in like a U21 game too. Sometimes they allow players coming off of injury to do that. I don't know if you knew that, Grayson, but like for example, Petr Cech in 2015 played like an under 21 game. for Chelsea.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's kind of like a rehab assignment like they do in the MLB.
Exactly. And I've also heard that N'Golo Conte might also be doubtful for this game. But on the other side, Matty Cash, the Polish right back, he was taken off versus the Czech Republic in the Euros. He's looking like he's going to be out. You also have Coutinho and Kamara that are doubtful. So, there's injuries on both sides. A lot of the ones you mentioned have kind of been, for the entire season. So Chelsea have already had time to adapt, but still big injuries nonetheless. It's just a game where both of these teams are in a position where they have to show out here. 38 points is still not far away from sixth place for both of these teams, and it's getting down to the end of the year. Both of these teams will be looking to get a win, so I think this is a really underrated game this weekend.
Yeah, look, Villa has certainly overperformed what we expect out of them on a year-to-year basis, at least. Obviously, Chelsea underperforming what they should be at, but I you can't argue with the results. Chelsea's coming off of a draw against Everton, who really has been bad as well.
Yeah.
But Aston Villa coming off a 3-0 win over Bournemouth, but they drew West Ham the week before it. And look, it's a week to week game here, especially at the middle of the table, because obviously it drops off after Villa, but with Brighton, Brentford, Fulham, Chelsea, Villa, and Liverpool for that matter, they're all 4 points apart, and every single week is a grind. So this one's going to be really tough between Chelsea and Villa. I think they draw 1-1.
I'm going to go 3-1 win Chelsea.
I think Ollie Watkins is going to score the goal for Villa.
Ollie Watkins. I think João Felix is finally going to get on the board for Chelsea. He had a great Portuguese game. I forget who they played, but I know he scored.
Oh, look, I do want to ask you. I was thinking about this earlier with
Let's hear it.
Chelsea. So, at some point, all of these guys are going to come back from injury. Do you feel like Chelsea has overloaded this team with starting level talent?
Yeah, in a way I kind of do think so, but I think that there are some expendable players that Chelsea have that they can get rid of. One of them being Christian Pulisic.
Yes.
But the fact that he started against Everton over I think it's pronounced Maduke, but he's like a young English winger who's
Yes.
done well for Chelsea, and Mikel Mudryk, who he brought in for billions of dollars. Of course, it's an exaggeration, but the fact that Pulisic comes off of injury and just gets to start over those two guys, absolutely criminal in my opinion. And man, I almost wish I forget who we played. I think it would may have been Leicester. I almost wish we lost that game because I'm starting to get a little bit fed up with Graham Potter, and I'm going to get really pissed off if Pulisic keeps getting time over Maduke and Mikel Mudryk.
Yeah, Noni Maduke needs to be getting minutes. He is fantastic. He's got a fantastic skill set, fast, great passer, solid, just kind of the prototypical wing player. And he does a fantastic job. He just isn't getting looks in the lineup. Look, and Graham Potter has enough on his table. The last thing he needs is great, like good players wanting to play and him not playing them because it's just going to cause distrust within the team that is going to get him fired.
Exactly. But like I said, I think there's a lot of guys that, with the talent we've brought in, can be shown the door. And one of them being Christian Pulisic. So yes, I think Chelsea have loaded their team a little bit too much, but I also don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
All right. Let's talk about West Ham versus Southampton. We're only talking about this because of relegation. It's truly on the line here between these two teams, especially. And I think as much as you could say this is going to be a bad game, it's 18 versus 20. Whoever loses this one's severely in a bad spot.
100%. And this is just kind of going to have to be a dogfight between the two. Of course, West Ham getting the draw over Villa which is a really good draw for them. Villa haven't been that bad lately, and that draw is kind of a bump in the road for them. So good job on West Ham for that. And then Southampton, Grayson, on the other end, got Antonio Conte fired at Tottenham, essentially. So with that 3-1 comeback versus Tottenham. So both of these teams are kind of coming off of draws that were really good results for them. And I'm just really excited to see how this one's going to play out.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And just across the whole bottom of the table from 12 down, a lot of them match up this weekend. You've got West Ham versus Southampton. You've got Crystal Palace versus Leicester and Nottingham Forest versus Wolves. The only teams down there that aren't matching up with teams already in the relegation zone are Bournemouth playing Fulham, Everton's playing Spurs, and Leeds obviously playing Arsenal. Those three teams, like realistically, Leeds and Nottingham Forest could be in a better spot this week than the other teams down there, even if they lose, because just three or at least two teams behind them could lose. Leicester and West Ham could drop points to Crystal Palace and Southampton. Southampton could jump out with a win and jump one of these teams that looks better than them. It's just based on this week to week matchup. And in the bottom of the table, I'd say is more exciting right now than the top.
It really is. And this game is, two of those teams in relegation zone trying to dog it out, which can't. It really doesn't get more exciting than that, especially at this point in the season. Look, one of these teams, Grayson, only one of these teams is the team that got Antonio Conte fired. I'm going with a 2-0 win for Southampton over West Ham.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that this should probably be like a 0-0 draw. So I'm just going to take that. I feel like it's just so bad. I will say that West Ham is unbeaten in 5 home games. I'll give them that. And Southampton haven't scored in 2 away matches. But just because they're unbeaten doesn't mean they're going to win. I'm going 0-0.
I like it.
They both average under a goal a game.
That's lovely.
All right.
A chance not to get relegated.
Yes, both of them have a chance to not be relegated. All right, the last one, a fantastic matchup. Newcastle
Yes.
versus Manchester United on Sunday.
Yes.
I'll actually be able to wake up and watch this one because it's at a manageable time at 11:30. But bunch of inactives here. Casemiro, of course, suspended. It wouldn't be a Premier League game for Manchester United if Casemiro could actually play in the game.
He needs to stop choking out other players.
And then a ton of key inactives here. Rafael Varane, doubtful. Marcus Rashford, doubtful. Donny van Beek's already out for the season. Christian Eriksen, out. Anthony Martial, out. Garnacho's out as well. What's left in this lineup for Manchester United without Rashford? I'll be honest. That's really all it takes.
Yeah. They're Manchester United are in a spot where they're gonna have to prove that they're not Marcus Rashford, that they're Manchester United. Can they do it? I think so, but Newcastle, I think, is the main story of this game. Because Grayson, you and I are in the same boat with Newcastle, where you and I both really, really enjoyed how well Newcastle were playing this season. Look, I mean, let me scroll up and find it here. They've only lost 3 times. The only other team to do that is Arsenal, but they're in first. Newcastle just drawn more games. If you're a Newcastle fan, I want Newcastle and their fans, actually, the team and their fans. You need to see fucking red in this game. You have been bullied by all the big teams in the Premier League, I feel like, but you're up there with them at 5th place. Manchester United beat you in the Carabao Cup, and I want to say beat them twice in a row with a Premier League game with the Carabao Cup too. You're a 5th place team that is being owned by the team in 3rd place, and that just can't happen. Y'all are too close in the table. I want to see Newcastle come out and fucking beat Manchester United so bad for their sake.
I would love to see it as well, but Newcastle is going to be missing Miguel Almiron and Alan St. Maximin.
2 big players there.
That's the big thing holding me back here. You're missing a fantastic um, left mid slash left wing with Saint Maximin, and you're missing your top goal scorer with Miguel Almiron. It would be tough to see a win out of Newcastle. Obviously, they could do it. Manchester United just as beat up, and the table would really get shaken up here with a win for Newcastle because they would draw on points, but Newcastle's got them 14 goals in goal differential. So no matter what, if Newcastle wins, they jump Manchester United in the table. But if Tottenham picks up a win against Everton, which is rather likely, Tottenham's going to be in third place with a win. With a draw, they still stay in fourth if Newcastle wins. But this is just a ridiculous situation here because in no world should Manchester United be in fifth. Tottenham certainly shouldn't be in third, but Newcastle is very deserving of their spot.
And I want them to keep it, if not get higher. And because this team has played too well for them to keep slipping at this point in the season. And it literally just comes down to playing the big six. They just simply have to do better. They're up there with them. Why not compete with them? Because they haven't so far.
Yeah, look, Newcastle's last four, their last two matches, they win over Nottingham Forest and Wolves. The two matches before that, they lose. Manchester City, Liverpool. If they can't perform against the big teams in the Premier League, they aren't going to contend. That's what has happened throughout this season, and it simply needs to change. This could be their opportunity. Man U is missing a ton of attacking prowess in this match with the people that are going to be out. So, could Newcastle at least hold them to a draw? Possibly, but you really want a win here.
I hope that Newcastle wins, but if I were, to give a score prediction, I'm just gonna go 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. They play really well away from home.
I like it.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about with the Premier League?
Um yeah. Antonio Conte obviously got fired because of that press conference where he pretty much just called out the entire board after a brutal giving up a 3-1 comeback tie to Southampton, who were bottom of the table and they're fourth. But still, do you think Antonio Conte really needs to get fired with fucking 28 games played? There's not that much Premier League left, and they're a top five team who just fired their manager.
Yeah, he certainly should not have been fired. I don't give a fuck what he had to say. They are getting results. Their last four, they've picked up 10 points. You can't ask for much more out of this Tottenham team. And yeah, they're coming off of a draw with Southampton that they certainly should have won. And they certainly should have beat Wolves a couple of weeks ago. That doesn't change the fact that Tottenham sits in a Champions League spot right now. They have the ability to jump Manchester United this weekend, and they just fired their fucking manager?
Yeah, and they're 7 points behind like potentially being ninth place.
Yeah, it's wild.
So yeah, completely wild there. But yeah, just poor timing. Antonio Conte is a great manager. Won the Premier League with my team. I personally I hate Antonio Conte, but is he a good manager? Yes. Should he have been fired at this point in the season? Like you said, fuck no. Why they did it? Not too sure why. I mean, of course, he did call out your board. You don't want to look sorry and keep a manager after that. But Antonio Conte was 100% right about Tottenham, and that's really all I have to say. Tottenham should have kept him.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been fired. They could have waited till the end of the season. But also, what merit do you have to fire a guy if they make the Champions League?
Exactly.
It's an interesting situation. But that's going to wrap it up for the Prem. Let's hit stake your claim, and then we'll get the fuck out of here.
Let's do it.
Luke, do you want to give me the honors or do you want to take it?
Um, I will take this one.
All right, let's hear it.
Now, this is a bold. It's kind of more of a scenario, I guess. I don't really know if this is a claim stake, but this is a real possibility that I think we could see in the MLB this season. I think the AL East could potentially end up finishing Blue Jays, Orioles, Yankees.
I love it.
Obviously, I pray to God that I do not live in a world where the Yankees finish behind the Orioles, but it's a possibility. They're a huge dark horse that was contending for a wild card spot last season after being like, just in the dirt basically. Um and they're only going to get better. That's what I always like to say about young teams is like you may have missed out this season, but with the squad that the Orioles have, they can only improve if they're healthy. The Yankees proved last season that they can be a 40 and 15 team, but in a month towards the end of the season, they can also be as inconsistent as going 10 and 18. So yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility. It hurts to say, but that is my claim stake is that the AL East could end up going Blue Jays, Orioles, Yankees.
I love that take. I'll be honest. Look, it's not even that I'm preying on the Yankees' downfall. It's that you're praising the Orioles, and they deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like them at all, but you got to give it to them. They're having a complete rejuvenation finally, and I don't know. I hope we get to see some better baseball at Camden Yards because that's also just a really cool stadium. So, fuck you, Baltimore, but hats off to you.
All right, I'll go ahead and stake my claim. And this one I did write last night, actually. It wasn't even a matter of like I wrote it today after the game happened. I think that Jacob DeGrom is going to have a healthy season, but after multiple years of only seeing a small sample size, he's not going to perform at the Cy Young level over this whole full season.
Okay.
And it just so happened that he didn't perform at that level today. But I just I don't think he can do it for a full season anymore. It's really hard when you've been injured for like 3 years straight to just come out and do it. Like, I get it. Verlander came off of a full year off and won a Cy Young. I just I don't trust this history of Jacob DeGrom. So that even if he has a healthy season, I just don't think that he can keep up with the other guys in this division, especially in the Cy Young race.
I like that. And personally, to kind of um, go off of that, I would rather have a player go be out for an entire year and come back than to have like 4 seasons where they can never log in an entire full season without being hurt. I personally think it's better to miss an entire year than to never be healthy,
Yeah,
and that's Jacob Degrom.
yeah,
And on
it's
top of that, you're putting him in a completely new environment. Of course, he's talented enough to, show his ass anywhere he goes. But you're exactly right. He's inconsistent as far as his health goes, on top of the fact that he's with a completely new team that's not necessarily, we both talked that they could be a dark horse, but they're not, going to compete really for a playoff spot, probably. So if I agree with this take a lot, actually. If DeGrom's downfall is going to happen, this is the season it's going to happen during. So I love that take, Grayson. That's a good one.
all right. Well, we've got a fantastic weekend of baseball ahead of us. We've got the draft coming, and it's now less than a month away. I am I'm so excited for what's to hold from sports, going into the summer and what we have for you guys going into the summer. Whole lot of great stuff. It's going to be coming your way and you don't want to miss it.
Nope, not at all. Yeah, just happy that baseball's back, man. I mean, this Thursday has just been so awesome. I wish I didn't have to work today and I could have actually like really followed what was going on. But hey, it's all day, so I got to go to work and come back to more baseball. So
Yeah, there's nothing better. All right. And like I said, you got to stay in touch with everything going on here. We're ramping it up. once the summer comes around, it's gonna be just ridiculous how much
Yeah.
effort we are gonna be putting in. You got to be following us on all the social medias: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Join the Second and Short Reddit. I really want to get that going. It's hard to consistently go on there though. And make sure that you are looking out for everything. We're going to be trying to make some more content outside of the podcast this summer, which I think could be super entertaining. Um, just so much stuff coming, and I can't wait for everybody to see it because me, Luke, and Brock, we've been busting our asses for what this podcast is almost 6 months old at this point, which is
Wow.
so crazy to me.
That
Um,
that really puts it in
yeah,
perspective.
we started in the first week of November of 2022, so it's huge. Um, I love it. So we're gonna keep doing it. I know you guys love it. I've been hearing the feedback. So without further ado, Luke, let's get out of here.
Let's do it. Deuce, guys.
Peace.